I'd like to call to order the April 15th, 2026 regular meeting of the South Burlington School Board. The first item on the agenda is a projected executive session. The topics are safety of persons or the security of public property, discussing non-public protocols related to crisis response, employment of a public officer or employee, receiving confidential attorney-client communication for the purposes of providing legal services to the board, labor negotiations, and real estate. I doubt we will use the real estate one, but if we do, I'll say that later. We will probably be joined in executive session by District Council McLetty and Joe Clark, Superintendent. So I would entertain a motion to.
And Monica and
Oh,
Jean Marie.
Monica and Jean Marie.
Greg Short's gonna be there too.
Yeah, he was.
Officer Short will be there too.
I
So
don't have his number, do you?
Monica Desrochers, Jean Marie Clark, and Officer
Greg Short.
Greg Short. And so I would entertain a motion to find that premature knowledge of some of the topics we're gonna discuss would put the district at a significant disadvantage. Michelle moves,
I'll second.
Jen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
I move. I'll second.
Emily moves, Jen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. We're now in executive session. We should return about 6 o'clock. All right. I'd like to call back to order the April 15th, 2026 regular meeting of the South Burlington School Board. The next, we just got out of an executive session. We talked about safety of persons or the security of public property. We talked about employment of a public officer or employee. We received confidential attorney-client communication for the purposes of providing legal services to the board. We did not talk about labor negotiations or real estate. We were joined by District Council McLetty and Monica Desrochers and Jean Marie Clark and Joe Clark. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any announcements from the board? Go.
I'll shoot home. Oh. We had every intention to take some time to thank Monica for all this has done. This would be her last board meeting. Chance to do it, right?
You can still think.
Yeah, she was awesome. So.
All right, so we'll review the agenda. And I do remember, Jean Marie, that you had requested something on here. So first item on the agenda is comments from the public about any topic whatsoever, whether or not it's on our agenda or not. The next is the student representative report, followed by superintendent's report, followed by our community forum, talking about the end policy revision. The next item is discussion of child nutrition and also a discussion of the superintendent evaluation. That's a possible action. We may decide to do something there. Then we have monitor report 2.4, financial planning and budgeting, monitor report 2.9, communication and support to the board. We have action on the employee severance plan and charging the legislative advocacy committee. And then we have the consent agenda. Jean Marie, would you remind me of the agenda change you were asking for?
Financial planning report and child nutrition funding, if I could speak about both of those at the same time, wherever you want to put me. So I don't know if you want to put on your superintendent evaluation at the top of your discussion item, and then I can do my next two.
So would the board be amenable to moving the superintendent evaluation discussion item before child nutrition funding? Okay,
I'd like to, ask if the board could also add the 26-27 school calendar to the superintendent's report. There's some adjustments I think that we're gonna want to make, and then with the board's, input before I make those changes.
okay. I was gonna suggest to the board that we, given this is developed into a pretty long meeting, we kick the can on the legislative advocacy committee. Now, we do have a legislator in the audience, so maybe it would be good to actually do that, but
I would say, yeah,
keep it or
let's, yeah, it's. Kick it.
kick it, okay. Is there, does the board wanna kick it or keep it?
I think we should move that. James said-
So far, that's only three,
He said kicking, but he said no.
He said,
right? That's only three so far.
oh,
Oh, yeah.
Move it, okay. Well. All right. Then we will add the 2026 school calendar to the superintendent's report, and we'll move superintendent evaluation for child nutrition, and we're kicking out, we're removing charge legislative advocacy committee for today. The next item on the agenda is, comments from the public. So during this section, you can comment about anything. There are three opportunities to comment to this board at this time about any topic. Also, before the board takes action on an action item, but only on the topic being action. And also, if this is a specially warned community forum and only on the topic warned on the agenda. This is a community forum and that starts at 6:30. The board will not respond to public comments except during the community forum and only if the comment is warned on the agenda. An official complaint or agreements cannot be filed during public comment. So do we have any public comment? Is there anything online?
No.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is student representative report.
Thank you. So all schools will be closed next week for April break and students will return Monday, April 27th. Everyone enjoy your break.
And on Monday, April 13th, the high school guidance department hosted representatives from 16 different colleges from Canada. Students in grades 9 through 11 that were interested in colleges from Canada were encouraged to come learn more.
The South Burlington School District Fine Arts Night will be starting at 6:30 today. Which this is a celebration of creativity across the whole district, so it includes student art galleries, as well as face painting and performances from the South Burlington High School Jazz Band.
And the high school green team has been running a battery bonanza for the past week and a half. Many SB and school community members have already donated. We could always use more. If any students are watching at the high school, we need help shipping and packing them. So if you want to show up to a lunch, either tomorrow, Thursday, or Friday, that would be great. And anyone can drop off any type of battery, all of them, car, whatever, in the high school lobby until this Friday.
Can you just clarify, is this a donation or is this a please recycle my dead batteries?
Please recycle your dead
Oh,
batteries.
I didn't want to bring you a
So-
bunch of dead batteries.
No.
Helpful.
Clarify, yes, any dead batteries you have, we're trying to win a competition, where if we have the most out of, I think, 15 schools in Vermont that are participating, we get $1,000 towards our club.
Great.
So,
And we can drop them off
exciting.
at the lobby, high school lobby?
Yes, anytime
Anytime,
during school hours.
and Friday's the last day.
Friday's last day, because we have to be done shipping Friday or the Monday after break, so.
Okay, but like Friday morning's okay.
Yeah.
Special delivery.
Yes.
Have less than 2 days.
I can do both. I'm ready for you.
Right, and then the elementary schools have a lot of exciting events coming up at the end of April and beginning of May. So students will be participating in spring concerts, fun runs, and a lot of other events. So make sure to look at your individual school newsletter and calendar to make sure that you don't miss any events. That's all.
Great. The board have any questions? No. All right, the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. The first item on it is in response to a question that I believe you had brought up, Jen.
Yes. So my question, was just in regards to, understanding a little bit more about what a day in the life looks like for a student. I don't know if there's a way to evaluate what the schedule is for elementary school versus middle school versus high school. And if there's a difference that you can see in, for the high school, like how that can change, what their instructional time may be, as they move from freshman to senior year. And the reason that that's coming up is because I have a senior who does not seem to be spending much time in school. You know, he'll go into school at some days 12 o'clock and he's home by 2. And other days he might go in at 9 and he's home by 1, that kind of thing. I mean, his schedule is just so erratic and it doesn't really make sense. I mean, I think of when I was a student in school, I would go to school, I'd be there from, 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day, whether I was a freshman or a senior. And I think some of it has to do with credits and I don't understand it. And I think it would be helpful to understand that.
Well, I will, I did prepare to talk about the high school instructional day. I did not realize that you were hoping for me to do the other ones.
That's okay. I mean, I'm just thinking like in perhaps later to have like a day in the life, K through 12 or whatever, it might be interesting for people to see.
Yeah, we can,
If this is what you can anticipate, but yeah, Dr. Clark, I think now the big focus is on high school.
let me, share my screens. Okay, so before I even begin this, I want to talk about how even doing this presentation has caused a lot of anxiety among our high school staff. They are very rightfully so, very proud of the work that they do, the care that they give to our students, and they're aware that, as I was making my 3Q meetings where people were talking incessantly about the rigor is not there and whatnot. I want to make it clear that this is not a discussion about rigor at the high school. It's not a question about tests or retaking tests or any of those kind of things. It is simply a discussion about how much time students spend in classes. So you can see that. So why are we doing this? Like, the feedback from the 3Q meetings, I heard it often. Students are not challenged enough. There's too many study halls, too much time to spend outside of direct instruction. Office hours are not always accessible. The open campus can mean students are not actually in school during unassigned blocks. And feedback from the bleachers. This is not from my 3Q meetings. This is from me going to lots and lots of school events and just meeting parents and talking to parents, saying things, Jen, like you just said. But my kid seems like they're home a lot. So I want to talk a little bit about this. And really, to me, there are 2 questions fundamentally. Are we making the best use of student time for learning, challenge, and support? And how can we reduce the number of students who have unassigned blocks in their schedule? When we talk about, again, you brought up your students who has a couple of free blocks. There are reasons for that. Some is choice. Students choose what they have. Others is that the kids might be shut out of courses that they have requested, that there might not be courses offered that the kids want at that time. So there are lots of different reasons why kids might have those unassigned blocks in their schedule. So the first thing I did was I surveyed area superintendents and I asked a simple question. I said, how much time in your district does a typical freshman spend in a typical English class over the course of a year? And I chose English because every student takes English. And I sent it out to all the superintendents in the Champlain Valley. And I did not get a great response, but the response that I got actually surprised me. I was surprised how similar the amount of time was. I expected, just based on my experience coming from Ohio and coming here to Vermont, that we would have been low, but we don't appear to be out of whack with anything else that the community is doing. So you can see the BFA St. Albans, their average kid is spending 7,600 minutes in an English class. South Burlington, they're spending 6,700 minutes. So overall, it's not, sorry about that, not that wide of a range, but it gives you a sense. And I think it'll give you a better sense when we look at some schedules here. So this is, first of all, I want to repeat, this is an informal comparison based on a small survey set. I sent this out to everybody. I got 6 or 7 responses. So please do not treat this as definitive. It is just directional. It gives us a sense of where we lie with some of our neighbors. We are at 6,750 annual minutes in English. That is simply based on 90 school days. There's 180 school days, but because we're on a block, kids meet 90 times and they're in class for 75 minutes. So 90 times 75 is 6,750. BFA was the most with 7611. The lowest was Mount Abe at 6424. We don't appear to be that much of an outlier in this group. And just one caution is the schools use different scheduling models, so it's not a perfect comparison, right? Everybody had most schools in the area are on a block schedule, but they vary differently, so it's hard to make a really good comparison. So this is the next thing I did. I said, well, how about this? I got the schedules for every student at the high school, and I said to my friend ChatGPT, choose 5 random kids at each grade level just to show me what their schedules are, right? There was no prompt other than I want 5 random schedules. So I do not know who these students are, but I can show you that this is the 9th graders. So I chose 5 students. So you'll see student 9A, or student 9A, the first grading period, the second grading period, the third grading period, and the fourth grading period. You can see that this student has 2 study halls and class for the rest of the day. And you can see in this chart how many courses they have and how many study halls they have, or study sessions, or unassigned blocks. Now, the only unassigned blocks are at our upperclassmen. Freshmen do not get the opportunity to not have a class. If they're not in a class, they're in a study hall. So this student has a couple study halls the first 9 weeks, 1 study hall each of the other 9 weeks. Student 9B, this person has same deal, 1 study hall a day throughout the year. In the second grading period, they had 2 study halls. And you can see the courses that they're taking. They're all going to take science and English and social studies. And what am I missing? Science studies, English, and math. Thank you. And then they have some electives, right? Spanish or photography, what have you. Oh, and I missed highlighting that study session. So you'll see. Oh, I missed that twice. I apologize. So student 9B, you will see, does have a couple of study sessions here that are. They have 2 study halls in the second semester. So they are in. 6 classes and 2 study halls. Student 9C, their schedule is booked. No study halls. Student 9D, similar. Student 9E. This would be a student who is diagnosed with a disability, because you see the enhanced study session. So the plain study session is just a study hall, and an enhanced study session is where these students go to a study hall and are provided services by their by teachers. Move to 10th grade. 5 random students. Look at this first one has 3 study halls.
Could I ask you what is P1, like when does P1 start?
Period one starts at around 9 o'clock and they go for like 75 minutes. Each period is like 75 minutes. Okay. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. Student 10B, full schedule. Student 10C. They have an early dismissal. And their schedule's full. Student 10D. They have a study hall on first semester, the second semester, they have late arrival, so they can come late. Because they don't have a class until second block. And student 10E also, pretty full schedule. But these, again, completely random. I don't know who these kids are. I'm sure you know how to move this over. All right, here we go. Grade 11. So grade 11, this is where you'll start to see these empty blocks. Now, these are the kids who, by choice, did not select courses. And so then when you talk about your son, he would have a couple empty blocks. I believe his happens to be first block and fourth block, so he can come in and later in the day and leave. Again, what the administration will remind folks is that they absolutely have plenty of courses for kids to take if they choose to take them. However, they also caution that there have been so many reductions over the years that they aren't able to offer some of the courses that they used to have offered. So it's kind of a blend of kids wanting to take stuff and us having reduced staff a little bit so that we can't offer as many classes as we used to. Student 11B, look at that. So that student 11B on the gray days, they only have a third and a fourth period block. So they come in, in the afternoon. Let's see.
This is 11th grade.
This is 11th grade. Yeah. So 11D. So this is, again, this is a student with a disability, I believe, because they have an enhanced study session. So that's what I believe it means to me. And again, I am not 100% certain about that because the student's also taken AP Psych, right? In Math 3. I do know that they also have 1, 2, 3, 4 unassigned blocks. And then student 11E, peer leadership, they're teaching other students in that course, and they have a period. Then gone to grade 12, similar things. You'll see, again, as the students get to the higher grades, they have more free time, right? Or more time where they don't have classes in their schedule. So student 12A, on the first day, they have a block off. The second day, they have 2 blocks off. The student, step 12B, that looks to me like it's a career tech student who their full day is full. Student 12C, again, don't know who these kids are. That student has intro to business, 1 period, first day, and then they take 3 classes the second day. In the second half of the year, they have no classes on the first day of the block, and they have a couple of classes on the second day. Again, I should also remind you, these students all have their credits. They're not in danger of not graduating. They have credits. It's just that either they're not selecting courses or there aren't courses for them to select. Student 12D, you can see a few more free periods. 12B, a few more free periods. So that's what that looked like when I just looked at random schedules. So when I looked at then every student's schedule at the high school, this is what I found. I found that the average student at South Burlington High School has half of a study hall quarter, right? That the average student has 1.12 unassigned blocks. That combined, the average student has about 1 3/4 blocks not filled, and 81% of our students have at least 1 unassigned block for study session. Now you can see by the grade level where we are with this. So when you look at grade 12, again, these are the kids that have most of the credits to graduate, so the average in our class, they have 2.35 for the average senior. The average junior just under that at 2.05. 10th graders and 9th graders, they take more courses because they're still collecting credits to graduate. And those blocks are typically, although we saw some late start and early dismissal for the 10th graders, typically those are study halls that kids have. So the bottom line is our students at the high school on average take 6.3 classes and have 1.6 periods of unassigned time or study hall. Now, I want to make this clear. So is that this is not a judgment. This is not intended to be a criticism of the time they have off or the office hours. Because when you put this chart together, I think this was the question you were getting at, Shaneem, is the school day starts for students at around 9 o'clock, but they start the day with something called office hours. Teachers arrive at 8 o'clock. From 8 to 8:15, they have time to do IEP meetings or 504 meetings, or, prepare for the day or whatever it might be. And then at 8:15 to 8:55, they have office hours. So this is the ability for students to meet with their teachers, to get extra support, to go over homework, whatever it might be. Students also have 25 minutes of advisory time. That is where they are in a class with students, other students and a teacher there, and they do various activities. And then passing time is 20 minutes. I want to be very clear what this is. Passing time is time between classes, right? I want to repeat this. I am not saying that we should not give restroom breaks for teachers, or we should not allow them to eat, right? That's just when you look at the amount of time in a day, 7.5 hours, the amount of time that is actually given to instruction, take out the 40 minutes of office hours, 25 advisory, the 20 of passing time, and that first 15 minutes of the day, which could be meetings. So this is not a criticism. Office hours and advisory may very well serve very important academic, relational, and student support purposes. This simply identifies how scheduled time is currently allocated so you can better understand the structure of the student day.
Joe, can I ask a question?
Yes,
The 25 minutes of advisory, there are teachers do have advisories.
teachers are assigned to.
It's not technically teaching a course,
No,
but
they're not-
they're interacting with students.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not considered teaching courses. There's no like lesson planning or whatever for that.
It's kind of
Right.
lesson planning.
Yeah.
You.
You have to prepare, you don't want to show them nothing.
I have 19 kids, 30 minutes, is like, that's a lot of people to manage.
So you're saying that in your experience, you're planning time for that 25.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I can sit down and read a book or something, like I gotta be on.
Right.
Still gotta collect the phones, you still gotta do all the things and.
Normally during advisory, they have an advisory schedule that we follow, and we do certain things like we'll do panorama surveys during advisory, that's the time we have to do it.
Mhm.
And the advisory schedule changes for grades.
Okay,
So freshmen and sophomores, correct me if I'm wrong, have advisory every single day. And then juniors have advisory Monday, Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And sophomore and seniors have advisory only on Tuesdays.
thank you.
So it changes.
Thank you.
And it also kind of depends advisor by advisor, the activities we have aren't like a normal, every day you have something to do. It's maybe once a week you have a panorama survey or fill out this thing or whatever.
Mhm.
And beyond that, it's kind of up to the advisor. Do you want to plan something for your group, or do you just want to let them use it at a study hall?
Awesome, thank you, thank you. So here to me is one of the biggest, one of the biggest issues is transportation. We, like we said, we run office hours at the beginning of the day, the first 15 minutes, IEPs, 504 meetings, whatever other needs teachers might have. Office hours begin at 8:15. But our first buses don't start arriving until about 8:25, and the last bus arrives usually about 8:40. So there's a few concerns, frankly, that I have about this, which is that unless a student has transportation themselves to get to office hours, they're not going to be able to take advantage of the full time that is there for office hours, which naturally means that our kids with the most need, the most who come from maybe backgrounds that don't provide them with the opportunity to get to school on time. They're not being able to take care of that service, right? Making, but it's not an easy solution, right? Making office hours fully accessible to all students. Or even eliminating office hours, and it's not for me to decide or the board to decide. Because again, I understand that the office hours are valued by the staff. But if we wanted to start the school day at 8 o'clock with instruction to increase our instructional time, we don't have a way of getting kids there. So your options are, do we hire more drivers and buy more buses? Do we change the start time of the school day, which already starts late for our high school kids? Do we just not, do we make a statement, we're not gonna transport high school kids and you're all on your own? I mean, it's not an easy decision if the board, well, again, if the high school wanted to change how that is, it's really tough. It's really tough to change. And so that is the end of mine. So I want to be very, very clear. This presentation is not to pass any kind of judgment on what the high school is doing. It is not to say that there's time that is not being used well. It is to show you that the amount of instructional time that our kids have is impacted by a few factors. Transportation and in some cases, the lack of courses that kids have, and in other cases, kids opting not to take courses.
Thank you. Board have any questions?
I do have one. I'm curious if the culture of the high school encourages, so you mentioned a couple of times, well, if we cut and the student then doesn't have the opportunity that they actually. Is there any encouragement to, and I guess this might be more for Mr. Burke or for guidance, but are they encouraged to perhaps explore an alternative? You know, I'm in high school, I want to take Russian, it's not offered, so I'm gonna not do anything, or am I going to be encouraged to say, hey, maybe try the photography class, maybe
Yeah,
try the engineering class?
I can speak pretty confidently that I know that our counseling staff and our administrators over there want kids to be engaged in things. And I know that they recommend to them to, hey, take this course. I mean, it's free, right? When you go to college, you're going to be paying for this course next year. So get a sense of what you want to do. So I do know that they do promote that. Ultimately, though, some kids, I think, like the allure of being able to leave and come back. And you know, again, they all have their credits, so that's not really an issue for them.
Yeah,
So-
I'm kind of dovetailing it in my head to, you know, the conversation we're gonna have about the ends. One of our ends is to create lifelong learners, right? Do we serve that goal by saying, if you don't like those options, you don't have to?
I mean, it may not be a very popular decision here,
Nothing. I
but
said.
as a parent, I will say, I would rather that there is an obligation that you have to be in school between these hours, and even if you've got your credits, you find something to take and you fill your day. Because I'll say, I mean, if you're gonna give a lot of, I'm not gonna say all, but you know, a lot of kids an option to say, okay, you can either take a class or you can go home and, you know, read a comic book or something, whatever it might be. A lot of kids are gonna say, okay, I choose to do that.
But you as a parent can overrule that. You know, you can say, no, you're not gonna be leaving early or coming.
Yeah,
late.
I
You
can't,
can, yeah.
but I would appreciate the support of, you know, working
All the high
in the structure of the school.
Do it.
This is,
Yeah.
so that was unusual to me. So again, you guys are tired of me talking about where I come from in Ohio. We did not have the open campus. There was a time when there was an open campus, and in the district that I was in, a student was on their time away from campus, get killed by a train. And so they changed that, and open campus was really not much of a thing. So I was a bit surprised to learn that we have that here. So I surveyed superintendents. Everybody has open, that I did not get one school district that responded to my survey that does not have an open campus.
When did open campus start? Is that like a 90s thing or a 2000 thing or?
I don't know the answer to that, but it's.
Did you want to say something?
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been around for a really long time, and I wanted to add too that I think we have to go back to do we have the staff to have all those classes, cause I know even when I was a freshman 4 years ago, which the budget has increasingly kind of got worse since then. I like didn't get into a lot of gym classes and stuff, cause there just simply wasn't space to take those classes. So you can fill your schedule to a certain extent and you can ask students to be there, but once you're a senior, like, it's pretty hard to find classes other than like certain things like gym classes or the arts or stuff, and kids still struggle to get those things.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah.
It's not,
It's not cause it's not just cause kids don't wanna
Yeah,
be
right.
taking.
Right, there are
Classes.
heroes.
Yes, there's a lot fewer.
I will say, as someone who was at South Burlington High School in the nineties, there was open campus. It was only seniors who were allowed to come and go, and then it changed to juniors got some privileges. That's called senior privileges and junior privileges at that point. But I think it's an interesting point because you were saying parents could override it, and I know when we get into high school, really, we want the kids to be like making these decisions. You don't really want the parents to be dictating what classes the kids are taking. It's supposed to be like led by this like desire for these kids to learn what they want to learn, and you don't really want.
Well, I should
Parents-
clarify, that's not the official position of the school board, that's
So,
what you might be.
I would say as a parent who's gone through the school district, I noticed and appreciated that my input was less requested as my children got older, and it helped them. I saw it as a way to help them engage with them, what they're doing, and not look to me to dictate what they were gonna do, because they are gonna be becoming people in the world who have to make decisions for themselves. So, but at the same time, if you're a parent who's like, I don't want my kid to have any free periods, I mean, they're still kids, they're not like, 18 yet, so you could tell them like, no, you have to
yeah.
fill it up, go take a gym class with all the freshmen, I don't care, but
Or
you're
if
gonna
they
be there.
didn't have a class, they would be in the study hall, right? I mean, if they were to stay.
Yeah,
My concern about it is only safety related, really, but like I say, I mean, if there's not a course to take, then kids are either gonna be packed in a study hall or they're gonna be allowed to go out and take care of some other things to take care of.
I have something else to put there. I also think it's interesting to think about those free periods. It's gonna depend student on student. I really like school, so you're gonna get the perspective from me, who's someone who loves going to school, but like as a senior, I need some of those free periods to get my homework done and have enough time in the day. If I wanna be involved in sports, extracurriculars, which are important part of school culture, then I need to have those 2 free blocks that I have to manage that. So a lot of students do use that as a study hall. Some students leave, but there is a lot of students who stay in the library and use those free periods. So,
Thanks, yeah.
yeah.
And I think one thing else that I would say is that, you still have the hour at the beginning of the day that you could use that time to increase the amount of time that students are in classes, but it's not cheap because it does require a change in transportation. But also, what's also true is that just giving kids more time in instruction doesn't necessarily mean different outcomes, right? It all comes down to what the instruction is. So, a student in a 60-minute class can learn as much as a student in a 90-minute class, depending on how effective the instruction is. So you should not make a correlation that if we increase the time students are in classes, that our test scores are going to go up. I don't know if there's any research that would show that.
So maybe and we can definitely schedule another discussion of this.
Yeah, I know I went long. I apologize.
No, you're running late. And I was gonna suggest, if the board is amenable, to move the 2026 school calendar as the first discussion item, so the people who showed up for the community forum. Would that be okay with the board to move Joe's second report until after the community forum?
Sure. I'm fine with that. Yeah, I need to do it today, but it doesn't have to be. now.
Absolutely, yeah, okay,
great.
so we're gonna move that
Okay,
until, okay, great. So I'm so excited to see there are people online and there are people here. Thank you all for coming. This is a community forum. Community forums are an opportunity for the board to, in quorum, talk with community members. So, we will, take comments about what we're discussing right now, and the board will have a chance to go back and forth with people. So what are we even talking about? Let me share my screen really quickly. we're talking about ends. And I only want to show one slide from this presentation that we gave back in March. And that is to say, you know, like, what is ends? Like, isn't ends just a jargon word? And at our district, we're a policy governance district, and that means that we use the concept of ends to go beyond the idea of a goal and to say one where we say what the results that we want, who the recipients of those results are, and what is the worth of the results for those groups. So what we're talking about today is updating our ends policy. It talks about you know, what are the results and the recipients and the worth of those results for specific people. So with that, we're talking about ends. I will turn it over to Ali and Momin, who are going to read our ends policy.
Okay. Ends policy 1.0 global ends statement. Students successfully complete their education from the South Burlington School District, ready for their next step. They will show cultural and academic competence appropriate to grade and developmental capacity. All graduates will be prepared for college, career, or individual determined next steps. The ends will be met at a cost that the community will support. And this section was updated on January 8th, 2014.
Ends policy 1.1, disposition for lifelong learning. Students will demonstrate the ability, knowledge, and skills to adapt and succeed by 1, demonstrating independent thought, curiosity, and creativity. 2, responding to the varying demands of audience, task, purpose, and discipline. 3, gathering and analyzing data to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. 4, generating alternatives and considering options and different perspectives. 5, solving problems and making decisions based on knowledge, thoughtful debate, and reason. And 6, cooperating, collaborating, and leading others.
1.2 academic proficiency. Students actively participate in a full and enriching academic experience that includes language and literature, math, science, social studies, the arts and design, technology, world language, and health and wellness. Students demonstrate proficiency within these courses by 1, building strong content knowledge consistent with state-approved standards and district-approved curriculum. 2, comprehending, interpreting, and evaluating a wide range of written material, resources, and information. 3, writing in a clear, concise, and organized manner. 4, actively reading and responding with evidence to ideas, concepts, and opinions. 5, expressing themselves creatively and effectively in a variety of forms. 6, using technology, mixed media, instrumentation as appropriate. 7, effectively solves problems while attending to precision.
Right, and policy 1.3, personal development. Students will use self-awareness and interpersonal skills to effectively enhance their own performance and collaborate with others by 1, developing an awareness of their individual learning styles, interests, and passion, clarifying goals, aspirations, and post-secondary plans, building capacity to make informed and healthy decisions and choices, living responsibly with confidence, resilience, and adaptability. 5, demonstrating effective time management and organizational skills. And 6, building supportive relationships and respectfully advocating for self and others.
And 1.4, citizenship. Students will understand the impact of history, government, law, and the economy on self and society in order to contribute to their community and participate in local, state, and federal government in an informed manner by 1, understanding and expressing how diverse cultures and people enrich the human experience. 2, engaging others with honesty, humility, kindness, and good humor. 3, demonstrating respect for self, others, and the environment. 4, supporting, participating, and/or initiating social responsible action to benefit the local and global community. 5, practicing ethical behavior in all environments, including as a participant in the digital community. And 6, being proud of our shared experience and having fun along the way. And that is that.
Nicely done.
Thank you very much. So at this point, we'll just open it up for discussion of how we should approach updating ends, as they are a very important part of our organization. So do any board members have any initial statements, or would we like to hear from any community members who have thoughts about school priorities, school goals, school ends, anything like that? And if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand on the Zoom.
I'm sorry, I ducked out. I just wanted to make sure I think we had one question in mind, kind of a core question tonight about, I think I'm just expanding on the question that you asked, but about, organizing community, right? We've begun to reach out to people we know, but hearing feedback from others about how to reach all community members or, special interest in our schools. Is also all very welcome in this process. And it will help give us leads as we kind of coordinate the more focused activities about how to reach the broadest possible.
Yeah,
group of
this is
people for feedback.
the first of 4 community forums. All of them will be done by June 3rd, the intention being to give staff as much time to participate before the school year ends. And we will also be conducting focus groups with a professional focus group consultant. And those also will wrap up in the beginning of July. So again, open up for the community, any thoughts? And I guess maybe I want to take a step back. Those ends that we just read, they kind of read a little bit like a legal contract, or they kind of read like a academic document. And I just want to say that the purpose of the schools and the ends, it's a much more like democratic thing. Like if we want to just say what you think schools should do, you don't have to put it in those kinds of words. So, yeah, do we have any, come on, somebody's got to volunteer here to make the first comment.
Well, can I just say too, I think that I've seen some questions regarding why are we updating these ends? And from what my understanding is, they haven't been updated in 12 years. And it is okay to go and to look at these periodically and ensure that they're still aligned with, what the goals are for the district, right? And then also the fact that it is, okay, good, we've got your slide there, but then also that this is feeding into the strategic plan that Dr. Joe is planning to lead later. So it's like
Yeah.
sequentially, this is the way that we want to do this.
Yeah, key point, the goal here is that the board will update our ends, which are kind of abstract. And then Joe, starting in September, will have an approved set of ends on the assumption that we actually change them. Maybe we won't.
Right.
And then he can kick off a strategic planning initiative, and strategic planning is much more about operational concerns. So like the nitty gritty of, well, how do we actually get done what the community has asked for through the ends? Wow. Any takers? Anybody is welcome. Staff members are reminded that they have free speech rights.
Well, I wondered if what we were just talking about. Is there something that you want to, some way that we want to make the class offerings engaging or help get students more interested in filling their schedules? Or I mean, that.
I want how to keep them on campus.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just do plain language, and it could be, I'm not saying this is my thought, but if that's just like Jen says, maybe how can we keep kids on campus more? So, sorry, the words in your mouth, but that could be something someone's interested in knowing more about, right?
Right, and I was also thinking if anybody here today is in the community as an employer, as a organizer in some way, if they have ideas about how to get input from the groups that they are participating in, don't necessarily represent, but if how can we get people to come and tell us things? Because sometimes that's hard at the school board. you know, it's hard for us to get input. So if you guys have ideas about how to get input to us, we would like to hear it. Please, would you step up so we can get you on mic? Yeah.
Just two comments I had.
And if you could introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, name is Steve Como from South Burlington. I just noticed at the beginning of your, of the ends, the existing one, that the wording was a little strange in terms of saying, well, this is preparing students for college, or it seemed like, or other things. And it seemed like kind of like maybe some of those other things or the alternate to college should be spelled out a little more clearly, like skilled trades or what those other things are might make it more useful for other people who aren't choosing the college path. I mean, I know that's the preferred path or has been, but maybe it's not the path for a lot of people. It sounds a little dismissive for people who don't take that path. And then the other comment really was towards the end of the citizenship. I think now, especially with things being, I would say, much more complicated than they used to be in the past. Things like life skills, like students, like a goal could be, or an end, that students leave high school equipped to deal with the new world we're in, which is much more complicated than it used to be. You know, whether it be doing your taxes, dealing with financial things, finding an apartment, all these types of things that used to be actually, I think, quite simple, are now seemingly much more complicated than they used to be. And maybe, I don't know, life skills is what comes to mind for me in terms of a way to frame it. And as part of that goal of the citizen is being able to handle this increasingly complicated world. Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I think it speaks to, so I'm sure you started out, I ran out, and so I'm sorry if I'm repeating anything, but to the point that it is considered best practice, and at least in our training on what policy governance is, right? To revisit these ends periodically. I think, Steve, you pointed out two really good reasons why it is so important, because things change so much, and they have, you know, think of all of the things that have transpired since 2014. So having that opportunity to think deeply about what those things are that have changed, what about the job force has changed, what about the skills that you need to be successful in those jobs, what can you anticipate about the jobs of the future is the hardest one. That all of that is what, like, we are so curious to hear from all of you about your thoughts, because we're all experiencing South Burlington from our own point of view, and this is a good way to help us understand that and find those commonalities and just, you know, look, because obviously there are things in here that probably work really well. You know, we've got some really good statements in there that few people could disagree with, but the time to look is now.
Other thoughts, please.
One-on-one.
Say again.
No, just like one-on-one.
Oh, great.
Elizabeth Fitzgerald. Oops, what's my, I looked back when I first became aware of ENDS policies, and the first date I have in my files is 2009. So it goes back a long way. And I anticipated, as the board was going to review global end statement and the ENDS policy supporting that there would be lots of opportunity for change. And like you, Michelle, I kind of went back and said, what has changed since 2014? And you can go through a laundry list: smartphones, pandemic, artificial intelligence, social media, natural disasters that have resulted in climate resiliency needs, the gig economy, ICE surveillance and monitoring, Me Too movement, school shootings, cryptocurrency, Black Lives Matter, the list goes on. So as I reviewed the ENDS policies, I kind of kept in mind all of those major changes that were impacting or had the potential to impact the ENDS policy. And I have to say, I was honestly surprised that I feel they've stood the test of time in a lot of ways. One of the things I heard tonight was sort of the phrasing of the ends, and having had the experience of developing this document from inception, I will tell you that there were probably, I'd say hundreds, less than 200 community members that participated in a number of roundtable sessions. And when it got down to each of the four specific areas, the phrasing was very deliberative that came to the document that exists today. And you know, I can give you some of the specifics. The way that started out with Global Ends is it was, you know, that students would walk across the stage. And that was a barometer for success, that they'd get a diploma. And, you know, then it migrated into students graduating from South Burlington High School, demonstrating readiness for their next step. And there was an intent to try to keep it very simple, but when it finally ended up where it is, there's so much deliberation in all of that. And I think Steve brought up a good point. There was an effort to incorporate things beyond college, which had been a primary goal of high schools, you know, however many years ago. And it was intended to highlight careers, and I guess I would add and/or individually determined next steps, which would be vocations in the military or whatever it might be. And then even the language around being met at a cost to the community, we debated many, many times afford versus support. And afford really is a presumptuous term when it comes to funding public education, in that that's a very ambiguous. So support is the word that got settled on, and that comes in the form of a yes vote. So as I look through, the ends, I think there are some opportunities for tweaking. I do think the potential to call out financial literacy, as Steve mentioned, may be an update that reflects, you know, the current environment. But I do think the challenge beyond some of the fine tuning that might happen through the process is ultimately going to be, what are the metrics that will be used to measure success and competency, and how do funding priorities get allocated ultimately? And originally, before ends policies were weighted equally, and there was a lot of discussion of should those be in some prioritization order. And I know some of the discussion was that the prioritization of those could change over time and might be called out in one period of time, or might be equally weighted in other periods of time. So those are kind of my comments. I'm looking forward to participating in the process. And again, I was pretty pleased that I felt like, for the most part, they stood the test of time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Online, we have a hand raised. You'd recognize Theo. Theo, go ahead.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi everyone, my name is Theo. I work for Outright Vermont. My position there is the GSA Network Coordinator. So I work with schools across the state and help support their GSAs. And my apologies if you hear my cat in the background too. She likes to make her presence known as well. I was wondering if the board could speak. So part of why I was invited here tonight was to ask about getting feedback from voices that are not usually present at the table. I'm wondering if the board could speak to what student involvement is going to look like in this process beyond focus groups.
So let me pull that up. I'm sure that's not the end of your comments, so I'll just respond to that directly. So my understanding is that is primarily going to be guided by the superintendent as as it regards, students. But, certainly open to ideas about, how to maximize student engagement.
Yeah, I'm thinking about really intentionally looping students into this conversation. In my perspective, they should be at the forefront of deciding what the priorities are and should be in their lived experience. And that goes beyond just tokenization of relationship with them, but really considering them as meaningful partners in this work. It could look like a class dedicated to student consultancy, for example. I know the Burlington City and Lakes Department does something along those lines as a potential model. And we've actually invited them into our office to do consultancy work on a dilemma presented by community partners such as ourselves. And this speaks to a little bit of the real world problem solving that people are talking about, the need for in class programming as well. That's just something that comes to mind as a possible way to loop them in.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm wondering if the superintendent's advisory council would be the group that would, I mean, it's a purposely selected diverse group of students that, I agree with Theo that it needs to be more than token, but I think it's important to get feedback from folks, but at some point when the committee is drafting, there needs to be student representation. And I'm thinking that it might be a place for some folks, definitely our student board members, but also maybe some of our superintendent advisory council kids to be a part of that.
You have another meeting before the end of the school
We
year?
do, yeah.
Yeah, I guess, so what I would love to hear more about is what people's thoughts are on how to encourage that, because we have heard in a lot of our conversations, there are plenty of students that don't feel the access, they don't feel that this is a place that they are free to come and talk, that we want to talk to them, when what we are saying is we absolutely do. So I'm thinking, I guess, more of the communication around that, about how much we really value that
So I think we
contribution
have to
and
go to them.
That's what I was.
I think we
Yeah.
really have to go to them.
Yeah, it has to
Go
go
to the clubs, go to the Essex, we call it one vote, all right, go to the environmental club, go to. Whatever, I think you have to really go to where they physically
I was
are.
gonna say meet them where they're at.
Yeah, I think that's the way to get people to talk.
It can't be like a high stakes.
Yeah, and this
thing,
environment
you know
isn't
what I
gonna
mean?
work. It just isn't, it's late at night, it's amazing that you're here, but I mean, I know how much work kids have after school, it's a lot. And so I think this environment is kind of weird, let's face it. So.
So getting like a list of clubs.
Yeah.
And then working with the superintendent to make sure that access to those students is appropriate and
Yeah,
known and, you
and
know, like
our
permitted.
board has come into Essex a lot, and they will come in and talk and ask us to speak to specific groups, so that's very possible.
So the one thing I would say on that though is that me and Logan sometimes talk about how like going to specific clubs still you're still selecting a certain group. Like it's still those students who have access to going to those clubs, because at this time, we don't have A block anymore, so a lot of clubs like meet after school. So what I would say is that I would recommend that it's more during like class time. I know that takes away from instructional time, but not everyone can go to clubs, so then
But they're
you're,
in those study halls.
yeah, so then like you go to study hall. Dr. Clark goes to study halls and talks to the group of students who are in the study hall, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Also just like advisory time, that's regularly when we do things
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
you know. A lot of the time students aren't doing anything anyways, but they're in a classroom, so.
And when we did it at Essex, this is about 15 years ago, there was, the school board members would come in and they would spend like an entire day. And so I think people who express interest, and you would be excused from class. So it was kind of a formal thing, it was formal yet informal, right? It wasn't a high stakes And they wanted just a wide variety of voices, so that actually works really well. It's within the confines of the school day. Transportation is not an issue because yes, that's a barrier, let's face it. So, I mean, that's another way to get students.
I think another resource available to you is all the data from the 3Q questions that I did. Now, it doesn't specifically talk about ends, but the question, what do you like? Or more importantly, what can we do better? That might give you, or the committee ideas about, and I talked to a lot of student groups with their, a lot of different school groups, community groups, so that, I mean, you'll have access to all that data to talk.
And I think teacher input would be vitally important also, echo student input.
I have a question for Theo too.
Oh, Bridget,
Oh, Theo is still.
Oh, actually, yeah.
is Theo, are you still
They
there?
might not be.
Yes, I'm still here.
Now, if I can remember my question, it's around how to ask the question, right? So we are updating ends, but we're talking to kids who may or may not be aware of what those are. It feels very heavy-handed to go in and read the ends and talk about the rationale, that they were in 2014 and that they are really great and a lot of work went into them, but we're, like all of that lead in seems like crushing and irrelevant to, at the same time, we are talking about outcomes, right? The outcomes that the community wants. And the students are on one side of those outcomes right now, and the parents and community members and, people not in K-12 are on the outside of those outcomes. And so I'm wondering how we frame the questions appropriately for students who are, admittedly doing very well, and we want to hear their thoughts, but yet have not experienced what happens after high school. So I'm looking for any kind of hook about how to even initiate that conversation effectively.
Yeah, I think speaking to the concern about accessibility as well, it's really relevant here because students who, the students who are going to raise their hand and jump into answering any prompts or questions you're asking them for are the students who are thriving in school, who are excited by leadership opportunities, and who see themselves as leaders already. And the people that you really want feedback from are the students who are maybe a little hesitant to see themselves in a leadership position. I think the way you really need to reach those students is through relationships. I heard you all talking about meeting students where they're at. I think that's also really important. But getting teachers to maybe nominate students, and the teachers have the relationships with students already and can really uplift them and say, maybe this is something that you wouldn't have considered otherwise, but I can really see you thriving in a position like this, or giving feedback would be really, really helpful. We'd be excited to hear from you. And then scaffolding the support, like just dumping the information on them about ends and, outcomes will be overwhelming, but seeing themselves as seeing them as meaningfully integrated throughout the process and scaffolding the support so they can build in their understanding. That's why I had suggested the potential of a consultancy course or something along those lines, which would allow for more long-term engagement, and then a teacher facilitating the process of here's what goals and outcomes are, here's how they structured, here's how they apply in a school setting. And then allowing the students to give input along the way rather than just all at once.
Well,
I don't know if
like
that answers your question.
Yeah, so Theo, I'd like to address I don't know what the word was, but dumping this on kids, that is so not what I meant. That is absolutely not what I meant, so I'm gonna explain. So the way we did it at Essex, it was over, and it's what Theo was just mentioning, relationships, right? So teachers have relationships with kids and they can recommend them. And then the way that we did it at Essex, it was over a period of weeks and months. So it wasn't like this whole decide. It was, bit by bit, building trust, getting ideas and then, and formulating. It took a year. So, but we don't have a year. So that's what I was saying. I do not, I'm not in the business of scaring children.
Should we hear from Julie Kuma? Thank you very much, Theo.
Yeah, thank you, Gail.
I hope you stay involved.
I guess my question is why we don't have a year, because I know that when the ends were updated last, it took months and months. Sorry, Bridget Burkhart, introduced myself, party thought. Parents and former board member. So I'm not understanding what the pressure is to have this done in such a short time frame. It's a really challenging time of year for families and for students that you want input from. And this is like culminating events, AP exams are starting, spring sports, all of that. It's really challenging in the next 6 weeks to feel like you're gonna get, at least from the school community that's already engaged, it's a hard time for people to really deeply engage. So I'm a little concerned about that. I would love to hear more about the consultant and the facilitation and like what that is going to look like. And I would just urge a little bit of a slowdown since this is so important, because it sort of drives a lot of other things in the district, like a lot of other policies and a lot of other things that are tied to the ends. So resource allocation, operations, all of that sort of, is meant to support reaching the ends. And so there's a lot of impact for what the ends look like and how they change. It's got a lot of downstream impact. I would advocate for a slow process. The other reason I would advocate for a slow process is it's hard to tell what's going to happen at the state level, but if H955, which is the big sort of next steps in education transformation, goes through in the form that it's in right now, and that's a big if, like it's getting voted on tomorrow and Friday in the House, and then it has to go through the Senate, and so it's going to be probably another month and a half before we know what the outcome of all those deliberations are. But if it were to go through in the form that the House has it laid out in, we would be in a merger discussion, whether it came to fruition or not, but we'd be in a merger discussion with Burlington and Winooski. That's how it's laid out right now, currently in the bill, which is a whole nother set of, questions for the community and a need for community engagement in those discussions and hopes and dreams and desires to merge or not merge and why and all of that. So it feels like a pretty heavy lift to be changing, or really in 6 weeks, going through a whole update to the ends when we're going to have this other bigger discussion coming along. And also in the bill are things like statewide graduation requirements, that would feed into what we would need to have addressed in the end. So even if we didn't enter into a real deep merger conversation, or that didn't come to fruition, there would still be things that are coming out that would need to be reflected probably in any ends that we would come out with. So those are just some thoughts. I'm just not understanding the urgency. I definitely understand the need for an update, and it's a different, the community changes over time, and there may be different wants and desires over time. I'm just not understanding why it needs to be done right now before school ends and before the faculty are gone. I don't understand why this can't be a process that continues into the fall and continues into the next school year. Just so we can kind of see how the state level stuff plays out and give everyone more time to be engaged. On the student engagement side, just one little piece of experience that Elizabeth and I had when we were working on sort of visioning for the middle school, high school project that happened several years ago. One thing that was really effective, which I think you've already touched on a little bit, and I would just go one layer deeper maybe, is we did have classes of kids take some time out of class and come through, and we would sort of say, these are some things we're thinking about. What do you guys think? And we got amazing ideas about very specific things that kids wanted out of new buildings, because they had a trusted adult bring them in to another group of adults and introduce them. And because they were with a teacher that they trusted, that sort of made them feel comfortable really expressing themselves and laying it all out there in a way that it doesn't feel as comfortable when they come to us and they don't really know us. And so I don't know if at the high school, they do the same thing, but I know at the middle school, they ask kids to sort of write down who their trusted person is or their trusted people are in the school. And that might be a way if a whole class isn't, you know, sort of pulled together to do it. If you can sort of find these little pods of people and they're trusted adults to sort of bring them along, that would be a way to make kids feel more comfortable really expressing themselves. The other thing I've seen Winooski do, just because I've been over there for various other education related things, they try to make a lot of these things very community focused with childcare and potluck and, you know, just really making it almost like a little party. And so you've got the little kids running around. You've got kids all the way from elementary up through high school. You've got parents there. They try to have translation services for some of the major languages that are spoken, because Winooski is a lot more multicultural than we are even. And so just really trying to make it, as opposed to a formal meeting, like more like a, let's come together and really think about our schools and where they're going in the future. So those are just some scattered ideas, but.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I love the potluck idea. And we have, how many languages among us?
So one thing I wanted to point out is that, we're also going to be reaching out specifically to non-school community groups. So just in the same way that I think these are great ideas to engage parents, and students. Another group we haven't talked as much about as staff, although I think that's gonna be largely the superintendent guiding us to how the staff can provide it, but although the staff does have free speech right to say whatever they want at any time without fear of any kind of consequences, as long as it's a matter of public concern, which the ANS policy is. But the other groups are, you know, retirees, employer groups, you know, trades, organizations. There's a lot of places that I think that we're gonna have to go out to, because I don't think they're gonna show up here.
So
Please,
just
yeah,
one
please.
quick thing. The Southampton Business Association, I think, is a great place to look as well. Because I know they have some very specific thoughts about what they would like to see in students from around the state. We've heard a little bit of that at the state level, and Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce, some of those folks who are seeing our graduates afterwards are great.
Yeah, I'll follow up if you would mind to ask who you think I should talk to, or those.
Yeah,
You've connected with also with the SBVA,
I did a 3Q with them. They were one of my first.
and they were going to be here tonight, but there was a conflict.
There was a conflict, yeah.
So,
Oh, that's right, that was, okay. Yeah, they're very interested in being involved, absolutely. And we had, one person that participated in the economic development work that was done by the council, who is also interested. So, yeah.
And I also agree with Richard. I don't think we should rush this. We have a deadline, but. Yeah. If I remember correctly, the old one was updated in January 14, was it?
January 8th.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be done by the beginning of the next school year. It's put into place in the middle of the school year. It's not going to be the end of the world. I'd rather take our time and get it right than try and rush to meet a deadline.
Yes, and we did discuss that at, I believe it was the March 18th meeting. We put our goal to be, you know, 6 months from now, doing a third reading of it. So that is a tight timeline, 6 months. And this board is not obligated to even change the ANS policies at all, you know, so it's,
I know some of that pressure is coming from me because I'm anxious to get a strategic plan. The superintendent wants to get a sense of where we need to go, but I would also agree that we should not make a timeline just to make a timeline. It needs to be a quality product where a lot of people have input. So if that delays the strategic plan, it delays the strategic plan.
Right, and the strategic plan was then going to kind of inform the budget, right? That was sort of where our timing
Yeah.
was coming, but obviously it doesn't make any sense to have
Yeah.
committee.
For example, I mean, if one of the ends up being that we want more life skills, then that means our strategic plan will be, we need to offer more courses in that, which means we need to budget for it and all
Yeah,
this.
so it sort of pushes
Yeah,
that kind of back That's.
right, but again, I don't, I know I'm, anxious, but don't go rush through it for me.
Well,
Well, that's good to know, because that was what was driving
Yeah.
my, like, my engagement in this. Is to support you in getting that connected to those next steps. Along with, when we look at these things, and I think to Elizabeth's point. Connecting to, what's achievable that we can demonstrate through metrics and how we do that. Doesn't mean we don't have the more aspirational things in our vision, but to get a little bit more tight on
Right,
some of that language to support you in building that strategic plan and in the monitoring process.
and nor does it mean that we are not going to work until we have a strategic plan. You know, I mean, there are certain things that we know that we need to get done, so. I like to have a plan so we can know where we're going, but,
I mean, it may be an ambitious schedule, but I figure we gotta start somewhere and let's just get cracking.
We can always
Let's
slow
go.
it down.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we can
and-
always do that.
We should inform the community if we're going off of the stated 6-month schedule.
Mhm.
You know, because the goal of what we discussed on March 18th was, let's make it possible for the superintendent to update the budget based on a community process this year. And if we don't do it this year by September, I don't think it's reasonable for him to really look at that until next year, which is gone, I think, from a short time horizon to a maybe an over long time horizon.
And I think another point here is too, that this is not going to be the, pardon the pun, end all be all. This is evolutionary, and this is us looking at it now. And maybe, hopefully, it's not gonna be another 12 years before we look at it again. But let's just start so that we can get to the point of the strategic plan, because my concern is if we stretch it out too long, then this just keeps getting kicked down the road, and I think there's some bigger things that we need to be going after as well. That's
So
my thought.
a part of our planning, and maybe this is a really good time to bring it up, is that we kind of had it in the exploratory phase and confirmatory phase. And what I mean by that is, first we gather as much information as we can do that, and we're doing it informally in this kind of process, and we're gonna do it formally with it, focus groups. And that is under that like 2-month timeline. The goal being to do it before school is out, and completely acknowledging that that can be challenging this time of year. However, it is in the end, then policy will be drafted. What the hope is that that second part of surveys, which maybe now it's more than a survey, right? What it's actually, we put those words in front of people, and then the next wave of feedback is on the actual proposed language. And so that by the time we get to the end of the third reading, that we're sitting in a place where we have hit, that kind of numbers of people that are input, achieved as much of the diversity of that input as possible. And I feel like we'd be in a much stronger position to make that final vote, right? If we have just as rigorous confirmatory part of this process where we say, this is our draft, let's confirm and correct and iterate a little bit more. Anyway.
So shall we call it
Yeah.
a day on this one? Is there anybody else in the Zoom call who wants to make a comment? Anybody else in the room? Okay, all right, well, great, thank you very much. I really hope that also you who have thought it's important enough to show up tonight will ask your friends to show up and, make their voices heard, because it's the most effective way of making change is to have us hear directly from different people. All right, the next item on the agenda, it's gonna be the 2026 school calendar. And then we're gonna do superintendent evaluation, and then we're gonna do child nutrition, and then we're gonna do monitoring 2.4.
Awesome, so thank you very much. The 2026, 2027 school calendar, I'm coming to you to let you know that I believe we're going to need to make some adjustments, and one is simply a error on our part, and the other is feedback from our community. The error on our part is that Yom Kippur, which is, I believe, September 21st, the Champlain Valley Superintendent's Association had that as a non-school day. And when we adopted the calendar, we had that as a school day. So we need to make that adjustment. The other thing is that we've got a lot of feedback from the community. And I can tell you again, my level of joy with the process of the Champlain Valley superintendent's dictating calendar and all that. They had Eid and Diwali as school days. And what I didn't know as a new guy here was that there was a lot of work put in this community to get those as non-school days. And while there's a lot of districts covered by the Champlain Valley Superintendent's Association, there's only a handful of us that have a significant level of representation of folks that celebrate those holidays. And so when the calendar first came out, Winooski and Burlington submitted a waiver for those 2 days, and they were given the waiver. And since we published our calendar, we've gotten feedback. It turns out that other school districts have gotten the feedback too. So I had a meeting this morning with all of the Chittenden County superintendents who all, including us, requested a waiver to make those non-student days next year, and we were granted that waiver. So we have the ability to do that. I have not yet spoken with the administrators about it. That is on my schedule tomorrow. I have not yet spoken with the union about it. That is also on my schedule tomorrow. But what I think is going to happen is that we will alter our calendar, which will make those 3 days, Yom Kippur, Diwali, and Eid as non-student, non-staff days. Now, here's the problem. The problem is we have there's very, very little flexibility in the calendar to add those days back in. As you know, we're supposed to have up to 180 student days and 189 staff days. And the way the calendar is, right now, we have a short Thanksgiving break. We have a short winter break. We start in August and we're done in June. So I don't know what the calendar is going to look like for those 3 days that we need to make non-school days. But I want to throw something out that could be a possibility and get the board's read on it before I take it tomorrow. And that might be if the last day of school next year is like Friday, June 11th, I think. I'm thinking that if we made those 3 days that we're taking off during the year, after that weekend, as staff days and student days if needed because of snow day, because we would with all of those changes, we would be down to 175 student days. That's the minimum. So if we took a snow day, we would have to make it up. So those could be on the calendar. I'm sure the staff would not be too thrilled with having to come back for 3 additional days. I think it's unusual that most places I've been, there's always been a work day after the students, like the students' last day would be, and then do you guys have a work day after the students' day?
We do, we have exam makeup day and which is on a Friday, but then we have to do 3 days, Monday, Tuesday,
Okay.
Wednesday, which is like.
Yeah, I mean,
service.
it's not necessarily, it'll be a change for staff, I should say. But I think that they might be student days and they might be professional development, stuff that we can get done before the school year begins. It could also be a time for them to shut down their classrooms and get cleaned up and whatnot. So I have not spoken with the administrators yet. I have not spoken with the union, that they might very well have better ideas than that, but I wanted to give you the heads up that might be coming. And I guess my question for you is, you've already adopted the calendar. Would you like me to bring back the calendar for readoption, or are you comfortable with us making a decision and publishing it to our meetings?
As long as there's no problem with the legal validity of the
Yeah.
calendar that we haven't directly approved, would anybody want it to come back to us anyway?
No.
Okay, so I guess as long as it's legally valid.
Awesome, thank you so much. So we have administrators meeting in the morning. I'm meeting with union leadership tomorrow afternoon, and then we'll make a decision within the next couple of days, because I know our families are anxious to learn about that, and I want to get that news out to them. But
So Joe, just to clarify, was Yom Kippur, Eid and Diwali, were they on the calendar as non-school days and then they were removed?
they were non-school days this year,
Okay.
but I think part of that was because one of them fell on a Friday.
I see.
So they're not on Fridays, and so I think that when the committee was making the calendar, they thought, well, let's just make those school days, it's not
I see.
an issue for our district. So, yeah,
I see.
yeah, I think that, you know, it's a good thing. I'm really grateful for folks that reached out and expressed their concern. Including Moment, who spoke on behalf of the students. Thank you very much for reaching out to me.
Advocacy works.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think that, again, it was just my ignorance of what the process had been, that I never even thought we should ask for a waiver for this, but I don't know, people told me. As did your place, which is going to also make that change.
It's also, because the problem is that I actually wasn't aware either, because they added I wasn't cluing into the fact that they were rotating holidays. Because it's really hard to give a holiday, you grant, you know, Diwali's off, it was really exciting for a lot of my students, and then. And eat and all the things, and then to take it away. And that does not feel good.
No.
That, and I didn't real, I have to tell you, I just was not.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either.
If you can't give and then take away, that leaves people feeling really bad.
Yeah, and that was the message, came loud and clear that we feel really
Good.
disrespected, that this was a day off and now you're taking it away. And I'm the superintendent, I'll take blame for everything, but.
Well, no, I
Well,
think
we
we have
can
to
take
ignorance
it.
of the board too. I mean, we all looked at the calendar and because I didn't know.
I didn't know they
specific
were
days, and so,
alternating
yeah.
them.
yeah,
I had no
I
idea.
really appreciate you listening to the feedback and making these changes. And I, for one, am happy to hear about us adding days as possible snow days again, instead of having these extra days that I think South Burlington had as opposed to other school districts. That was like, what is going on? there?
And I don't know if you have any influence of it, but you know what? It's a lot easier to take away days at the end than add, because every year
Oh, yeah.
at Essex, every day has to be made up, and those buildings, and I think you've got the heat pumps. It's like 95 degrees in those buildings, and we sit there, and it's just, it's terrible, and anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
So if this is what comes to pass, it'll be 3 days
Yeah,
at
but
the
I
end of
would
the
like
year
to
for
be
us
like,
to use.
you're gonna end June 20th, and then, oh, surprise, get out the 15th. I mean, that's a lot better than, oh, you're ending on the 15th. Oh, but surprise, just kidding, now it's June 20th, and that has happened to
Yeah.
in Essex.
But we're sort of saying we could do that.
Well, I don't
Isn't that
know.
sort
Well,
of- I mean,
the days are gonna be there, so people will know that these could be
Yeah.
paid.
oh, could be, yeah, you'll know these are possible,
We didn't have
days,
to know,
and we
so-
don't have to use them.
Yes, you know.
Yeah, you have to show up, but we're gonna have some
Yeah.
really dynamic.
Well, we got
professional
no
And
snow
time to
Joe,
work in,
so,
No
no
snow
snow day
Joe.
Joe, so.
Yeah, well,
So-
I do like a good snow day, but
Well, me too.
anyway, thank you for
Thanks,
listening to
Joe.
me on that, I appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
Next item on the agenda is gonna be superintendent evaluation. So, the Vermont District Quality Standards requires at least annually, the board formally evaluates the performance of the superintendent. And, so if I can share my screen, so. Rejoin. So anyway, we're required to do an annual performance evaluation by the state, whether or not it's actually in the superintendent contract. And so the proposal on the table is that we would start to use the VSBA to use their service to help us coordinate that this year, and then perhaps on an ongoing basis. So let me just pull up the exact wording. State. These look very familiar.
Oh, yes.
Is this the VSBA one, or this is
This is from the
AOE.
state. This is
This is
from the
state,
AOE.
okay.
So. Right, I recognize this from our monitoring reports.
Yeah,
So anyway, long story short, my proposal here is that we should go with the Vermont School Boards Association Superintendent Evaluation Services. Joe, did you have an opinion about whether this was a good idea?
I think it's a great idea. I think I've gone years without being evaluated and I would really love some feedback.
There you go. So, the cost,
Question.
Can I ask, what was the process like in the past? Do you know?
I do. I do know. And we did really want to use the service, but there was resistance. So basically, there was a rubric and, or questions, I think it was a questions, I did it 3 times and we filled it out and then the board chair compiled it. And then like gave like a, 3, 2, 1 rating. And so if you got 3, like being proficient, if you were proficient. So it was, but it was just among the 5 board members. So I think we didn't have any outside and we didn't get staff input and we didn't get community input or parent input or student input is what I recall. It was just the 5 of us doing the review.
So there's no like evaluation, there's no, I say it's like going out to look at the job, you guys were just doing it?
We were just doing it.
Okay.
And I think like you've been on the board long enough to know, I mean, we only know Joe in this capacity. Like we don't work with Joe. So that's why I think the VSBA would be really great because then you get input from staff, which is critical, students in the community. So
The full 360, yeah.
it's, yes, and I think it's really important.
Well, and helpful.
I mean, it would be helpful to you, right? If I thought it was gonna be, terrible and awful and mean, I would say no, but I think the VSBA does a really nice job. I know Tom Flanagan, he's quoted in the VSBA info as saying, and Claire Wolf, who's the board chair, Tom Flanagan's the super ed in Burlington. They're very positive about it. So I think it's worked really well for them and they do it every year. So I think it's a positive. I think it's a really good thing.
okay, well, I think that's potentially an easy decision then. So the fee this year is 2,000, the fee going forward next year is 2,500. So is the board amenable to amending the agenda to turn this into an action item? So, and then I would make a motion to authorize me to engage the VSBA to do the superintendent evaluation. Just need 2/3.
Well, do you want to are you making a motion?
I'm not making a motion, I'm just saying it's okay if we convert this into an action item.
Oh, convert it to an action.
Yeah, for now.
Right now.
Public comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're gonna amend this to be an action item. And so I would entertain a motion to authorize the board chair to sign a contract with the Vermont School Boards Association to perform the superintendent evaluation process with us this year. Laura moves,
I'll second.
Alyssa seconds. Any discussion, and this is an action item, so we will be taking public comment on it.
I have discussion. Please make sure that you get Delina the news so she can have a PO by Friday, which is the deadline.
Right.
For this year you wanna do, it, or for?
This year.
July 1?
This year.
For
This year, right now.
Good job, Joe.
I've only been on the job since January 1.
And you already know that. Yeah.
Nobody on.
Okay,
I would just say, I know $2,000 is not nothing, that is a cost, and the idea that we could do it is an idea, but in my experience, I just feel like everything that everyone said here, it is well worth that money for Joe to get the feedback that could actually help him understand what he's doing great, where his opportunities are, and keep things moving along and improve our district. So I think it's a great investment.
Yeah, and it's an objective third party. And yes, $2,000, that's not nothing. That also speaks to the fact that would take a lot of them. And so that's why, and you do get what you pay for. So I do think it would be a really good job then, rather than just the 7 of us filling out a form.
And I will, sorry.
I guess I did have a question, so it would be for fiscal year 2026.
it would be this year.
So it's 25, 26, well.
This
So
current
this
year,
The year that we're in right now, the fiscal year that we're in right now.
which is
So-
6.
That's ending in 2 months. So we
Yeah.
would be reviewing, or the BSBA would be reviewing his performance.
We review it, they guide us through it.
Yeah.
We're the ultimate,
Got it.
yeah,
But we're looking at the past 12 months, I guess, then.
although in Joe's case, it's probably that would go since September.
since September, so it's not quite 12 months, so it's.
Shins is higher.
The first year would be shorter. obviously.
Yeah, I just, that was a good question, because I thought we.
And VSBA said that timeline will work for them.
Yeah, yes.
So is it done at the end of the year or? I
It
thought
should,
that's what
we should
know,
really be
like,
doing it right now. It's
Yeah.
a regular
If
check.
we're a little bit late, it's usually, but that doesn't.
And then we're reporting the results to him by June's timeframe, right?
Yeah, or, yeah, ideally May, but.
Yeah. And I think that helps, like, for us to have, like, we keep going back to like having a scorecard for the board. But to have like some of these key dates, like, this is when you're doing your superintendent about, review. So that we can stay on the
Yes.
schedule.
Yeah. It's a good thing.
All those in favor?
I,
Okay, the motion passes. So the next item on the agenda is child nutrition funding.
Wait, we only took action to put it, to make it an action item. I think we got the action.
Didn't I move?
yeah, she moved.
Oh,
Yeah, we
Was
did.
there a public
We did.
comment?
Laura, Alyssa, then we had public comment,
Oh,
then we
yeah.
discussed.
There was no
No,
public comment.
no.
No.
Sorry, I was so hard.
yeah.
So the next item on the agenda is discussion of child nutrition funding. It is related to the following action item, monitor report 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. So, Jean Marie, you may address both at the same time.
Perfect, thank you so much. I just wanted a random comment related to your last topic. I appreciate your being so fiscally minded, Emily, because that, I appreciate that. But also, you all are fairly new in your roles, and Joe is fairly new here, and so you might determine that a year or two with VSBA guiding you, that then we could take a year off, if like, once you know the process, right? None of you've been through it, so just a bit of feedback.
So are you gonna do the monitoring report first?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the monitoring report, which is gonna lead me into child nutrition funding.
And I'd start with the state next. Thank you very much. So this is a reminder that this is one of the monitoring reports that we do 4 times a year. And I think that you'll see after we do this, that not a whole lot has changed. And that starting with the new fiscal year, Jean Marie and her team are planning to provide the board with monthly updates with some of the significant questions. So this, just keep in the back of your mind, is this one that we can reduce maybe to once a year or twice a year instead of 4 times a year?
Right, and that would be a policy in that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate
And
it.
so to clarify, just because we had a board question. The child nutrition funding, which is technically the item on the agenda, is very related to the monitoring report 2.4 financial planning and budgeting. And so we're merging the two
It's a one big topic.
topics into one big topic.
That's what we review 4 times a year, is that monitoring financial planning and budgeting.
Yeah, she just did a couple months ago.
Yeah. I'm just sharing with you a presentation. I shared, what was in your board packet was the report and the sort of scorecard, and what was not in your board packet, and I think I hit the send button on it, is a copy of this presentation. So I am gonna really speed through this, because as we asked the team to go through this monitoring report again, what we learned is that all of the guiding materials that we use to score ourselves in this are annual documents. For the majority, they are all annual documents. So what we've done in this report is, in the presentation, we have freshened the materials that can be freshened, and I'm gonna open just one of these for you, this year-to-date financial report. But before I do that, I wanted to tell you something that I forgot. Oh, I wanted to tell you that as they went through the report, they determined, the business office team did not change any of the compliance statuses that they assigned themselves the last time that we did this. Because this is a bit of a long game, and we have done so much to put in a lot, we have changed our employees around, we're changing some of our processes around, we've changed our software around, we've made a lot of headway, but there's really nothing dramatic that made the team want to change their compliance reporting status in any of those avenues that we examined. So
There's a whole lot of the same that you saw last time in the document that was in your board packet. And there's only a few things that are changed in this document. And I don't like to open up these links because they are a bit of an eye chart. But in particular, what I want to tell you is in the this year-to-date financial report, and I'm going to stop sharing this and then share that. No, it's not this one. Sorry, I am fairly technologically challenged.
Nick's coming to your rescue.
I think I got it. I think I have.
I slowed down.
Thank you, Nick. Too many windows open at the same time. Okay, so what you're seeing is, as of April 6th, a up-to-date, view of where our budget is. And so this is no surprise to anybody here or anybody listening at home. The biggest sort of swing factor in our budget is our salary and benefits line, right? Like that, of course, makes all of the sense in the world. So as you look at this chart, in our working budget for salaries, we had $38 million. Year to date, we've spent 25 million. We have encumbered, we've put a hold on 12 million. And so what we haven't spent yet is 900,000, just under $1 million that's unspent. And so that is, and this isn't new news either, that is positions that we have posted that we were hoping to hire for and we haven't filled yet. There's a lot of positions, particularly around like interventionists and paraeducators, that remain open. So that, and I think I can pretty confidently tell you on April 15th that we are going to quickly hire and spend almost $1 million in salaries on those folks. So, so that is unspent as of right now, is that 904. So that's good news. And let me scroll down a little bit here. In this section of revenues, you'll see that we have just about 800,000 of anticipated revenues that is short. So we have a shortfall of just under 900K in revenue, which isn't uncommon. I mean, sometimes these numbers are a little bit of a stab in the dark as we're trying to plot for these things. So in total, right now, we have unspent and unencumbered, sort of not like you hear Joe and I joke about this PO. So the way our system works is we decide that we budget for $15,000 in toilet paper. On the beginning of July, the head of the custodial services puts in a purchase order for $15,000 worth of paper products or toilet paper. Over the course of the year, he buys $1,000 a year and it gets charged. We're sort of PO like puts a hold on that money. So what we are working with, and we have had guidelines, the district has had guidelines for many years of how that system works and when your POs need to be in, so that I can come to you and say, hey, we have X dollars left over, or we have Y dollars that we're in the hole, which I never want to be here saying that. So we have a picture of really what our financial window looks like. And we need those POs to be in place in a really timely fashion so we can get our books closed in a timely fashion. So we've put a lot of pressure on the team, on the SB team, to put their POs in a timely fashion. And we gave them a deadline of last Friday that they all have to be in by. And not everyone loves that idea, because they will say things like, but I don't know. For example, we had a request from an employee today, like, I'm a person who manages different pieces of equipment that students use, and what if they break and I have money left in my budget? totally fine. Put a PO in right now to that vendor you normally would issue your repair services to for the amount that you have left in your budget. So it's held and it's ready for you when you need it, or if you need it between now and the end of the year. People sometimes don't understand what a purchase order is versus like submitting their bill for the invoice that they've received, right? So, right now, again, we have this number here in the box, $2.3 million that's unencumbered, that we have not assigned to anything yet. I also will tell you, we have plenty of needs and things that we can do with that money, right? That dollar figure equals 3.18% of our whole budget. Which, when you talk about a $76 million budget, to have 3%, like you're 97% accurate in your budgeting, right? So I'm pretty proud of that. Like 2 million does feel like a lot of money. But I also think that we're doing a pretty good job being stewards of that money. Go
So
ahead.
Jean Marie, so that money though, that 2.3 million, so
Yeah.
was earmarked for something. It's just
something.
a matter of people have got to put their POs in to say this is where it's being committed.
Where I want to hold it
So
for, yes.
that is the push, that
Yep.
the email that you sent out that
Yep.
we happen to see.
Oh,
with
yeah,
Staff,
yeah.
that was where, hey, we're pushed
I
it back.
forget that you get those, yeah.
But to say, get it in.
It was due last Friday, but I really wanted this Friday,
Get the
yeah.
job safe.
That's,
Yeah.
that's some of it. The other part is the
Yeah.
staffing that we
Yeah,
have.
exactly,
Right,
yeah.
okay,
Well, what's interesting that Joe and I have kind of discovered, and we talked about this before town meeting as we worked to put a ballot item in front of voters around moving, so those excess funds into the capital reserve. There seems to be a fallacy living in the SB world that folks were told like, okay, we're gonna give you a budget of $50,000 for this service, but don't spend it. I want you to save it. That's not a thing. We have to spend it in the year that the voters have approved us to spend it in, right? And if we don't spend it in that year, we have to go back to the voters and say, hey, we have this leftover money, and that's a whole year out process, right? So we want folks to spend the money that's been allocated to them for the different things, for the different services, to be mindful and spend it appropriately. But the idea that I'm gonna save it for next year only rings true in your personal budget. That isn't how a school budget works.
So a couple other questions. Do you do a reconciliation of your POs to see what the balance is? And if you
Yep.
have a delta?
Yep,
That's the first thing.
yeah.
And then beyond that, if you have POs that are not being exhausted,
Yeah.
what happens to that money?
Yeah, so that's some of this, like,
Okay.
that is some of these unencumbered money or like, we definitely can see that. And so when we tell people, so for example, in your next board meeting, I'm gonna come to you with bid award letters for roofs and the air handler. And like tonight, we're gonna talk about the van, right? I have already put POs in for a random vendor for a ballpark amount to just hold that money because I need it to be held. And we could go back and say, oh, Jean Marie took a shot in the dark and thought it was gonna be this Evergreen Roofing would get the bid, but in fact, it's it's Rod Roofing, right? And we can change the vendor, we can change the amount, but we need folks to go in before Friday and put on that amount.
And what's the expiration on those POs? Like when?
The end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
June 30. Well, it is June 30, but we have people that are traveling for conferences and Joe's having the student advisory group in again in June, before the year is over. So bills come in beyond June 30,
Right.
which is why those POs are good through June 30. But we need to, and the other thing that is part of this report is like our accounts payable is like, they're so on top of it that we're in really good shape there, and there will be less slop over into the next fiscal year. But the sooner we can close the books, the more accurate we are in them, and the sooner we can be audited. Like this year, we were very late in our audit because we weren't holding folks' feet to the fire to get your POs in time.
And that's one of the critical things too, is you have to have a PO before you can go do that expense.
That's
It's
right.
so critical.
That's
I
right.
just wanted to say, I really appreciate you laying this out for us, because I do remember at the steering committee meeting before the budget vote, a gentleman very rationally asked, well, you have $2 million left over, so shouldn't that come off of the top and you can
Yeah.
start $2 million less? But seeing this, I see,
Yeah.
while it's good that we have almost $1 million left in salaries, that also means that teachers have been overworked and there hasn't been enough resources in the schools
Right.
for the students.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we have the extra money because we didn't need it, it's because we weren't able to allocate it,
It's
and
telling
it's
the story.
still important
Yeah.
to the budget, so I
I
really
just wanna-
appreciate it.
Clarify though, that that is also your interpretation. Just what you just said is your interpretation.
Well, we
not the
had
board's.
asked for the money to cover those students,
Right.
and the voters said, yes, you can have this money to have those people in the classroom, because that's what was deemed necessary, so yeah, yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? We're talking about like how interventionists were not hired, that's where some of the
Mhm.
salary money is saved. But I also understand that like special education funds are reimbursed for federal dollars.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
does that affect like our excess fund at all?
It doesn't necessarily affect that, no, and there, some of those costs can't be as accurately forecasted as other costs can be. You know, we talk a lot about when if a different student moves into our district and the needs and so forth. So Nicole this afternoon was like, but Jean Marie, I don't think I can get all my POs in on time, right? So there is some swing in there, but we need to try to keep folks to be as accurate as possible. But our reimbursement from the federal government has been coming in timely fashion, like we're not seeing any delays there, so, yeah. It's just the struggle.
It's actually hire people to
Yeah.
fill those
I
positions.
can feel this better than I can, yeah, for sure. So the other thing I was just gonna say that Tim Jarvis shared with the board last year, and I just said to April again today, like, I can't get this out of my head. But, he said, you know, the average employee or the average educator, like as we were doing our budgeting, is like $100,000 salary and benefits, or even now it's like $130,000. So it only takes like 10 people to equal $1 million, right? Like that. Okay, I get $100,000 per person, but like, it's the fast math that adds up so quickly to 10 to $1 million that is striking to me that I can't get out of my head, so. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing this and I sent you all this. And I know you have a lot on your agenda and I talk a lot and I don't want to take all of your time, so, I really am not gonna go back through that presentation that I shared with you, because it's a whole lot of what you saw the last time. There's very little that's changed in there, and again, the compliance reporting status, the ladies didn't want to change anything because they don't feel like we've made, there hasn't been enough time for any real progress to be made there. So
Can I just say it real quick? I'm sorry, just to interject. I just want to say, I really like that table. That's exactly what
Pretty
I've been
simple.
looking for.
yeah,
Is something like that to say, here's the budget. And
Yeah.
I don't recall seeing something quite like that format before, where you roll it into the buckets and
Yeah.
say, here's how much we allocated to each of them.
yeah,
And here's how much we've spent and here's how we're tracking.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's really helpful. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
yeah, happy to. So I am gonna stop talking about this monitoring report, and I want to now talk about child nutrition funding. And I want to make sure that you all know that my friend and colleague Rhonda Kettner, who's our director, our amazing director of nutritional services, is on Zoom with me. So I told Rhonda that I was gonna talk about this, and I asked her to be ready to answer any of your questions. So with Rhonda's permission, I'm gonna give it a shot first, and then Nick will allow her to pipe in whenever she'd like to. So,
And so to clarify, we're not moving on from the action item. It's just that we're incorporating the child nutrition discussion item into this action item.
that's right. So the first part of the story was, we have some money left over in our budget right now. And we know that there are other places where we can reallocate and use those things. And I always talk to you guys about facilities items. At our last meeting, one of the auditors joined us to talk about how our audit went last time. They sort of planted the seed around how we were accounting for our child nutrition funding. And one of the things that came up in the audit last time that our team found is that we had for many years had a excess of funds to approximately $1 million in our child nutrition fund. And per the state guidelines and the federal guidelines, we aren't allowed to just keep this like big pile of money in the bank. We have to have a plan to spend it, a spend down plan. And Rhonda has been with the district for around a decade, maybe a little longer. And Rhonda, when she got here, we were in a big deficit. So for her credit, she is the one who got us in a good place where we suddenly have $1 million excess, essentially. But she has said in the time that I've been here, it's not right. I know that we don't I know I have money left over, but I don't feel like I shouldn't have $1 million. And so that really came out this fall, that of her $1 million, there was 300,000 in fixed assets that had been previously attached in the like cash pot. So it's not actual cash on hand. It's $300,000 in equipment and tools infrastructure. And so that it has suddenly so she's been spending her money to spend buying equipment, and we did a lot of renovation in the high school kitchen last summer rather. And so we've been fast and furiously trying to spend Rhonda's money, and then all of a sudden it was like, whoops, you're $300,000 short. So the business office team met with Rhonda recently to talk about how much she has currently in her budget for this year and how much is planned for next year, what her staffing looks like, what her costs are, and so forth. I should also tell you that it is incredibly common in school districts across the state and likely across the country that child nutrition programs are not fully self-funded. The amount that we get in a reimbursement from the federal government is not as high as our staffing costs and the cost of foods, which any of you that are buying groceries know that to be true. So, or hiring people. So, as amazing as Rhonda is in being really mindful about where she is spending her money on her cost of goods, that sort of like the cards are laid out against her. So what we're looking at right now, and actually I have one other thing I'm going to share with you. Rhonda, I know that you're there. Did you want to, have I said anything inaccurately yet?
Not really. I do just want to clarify, Jean Marie, just for the board, that the figures that you showed before do not include anything for nutritional services.
That's right.
That's right. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm sure the board is aware, but nutritional services operates as an enterprise fund, which means unless there's extenuating circumstances, we are expected to produce enough revenue to cover all of our wages, benefits, food costs, and now apparently equipment repairs. So it's not included in the amount that you saw before. So this is what Jean Marie is showing you right here, is where luckily the business office, can you scroll down a little bit, Jean Marie, so I can see where, when you share your screen, okay. No, I'm not seeing that. So this is what I got from the business office after they did the audit and they took away the $300,000 that I thought we had, and I had budgeted for that. So to give you a quick overview, when I started in 2013, the Nutritional Services Department was almost $500,000 in debt. We paid off the deficit in February of 2020, just before COVID hit. Since then, we have not had a deficit. Actually, no, there was one year, it was 25,000, but that was 2019, 2020. So when COVID hit and the district was having to keep people employed, we needed people because we were all of a sudden, we went from serving kids in the cafeteria to the very next day delivering meals to their homes. So we needed some additional staff. So the district assigned the people to nutritional services. We employed them at their current rate, which was way more than what most of my staff was making, so that we could package up thousands of meals and send them out with buses and keep our children fed so that they could engage in the online learning. But that was, again, a measly 25,000. So in 2021, our end note was 57,000. No, excuse me, 2021 was 57. 21-22, we had $688,000 in our account. 2022-23, we had over $1,100,000. And in the 23-24 school year, we had $1,200,000. So, and in 24-25, we had $1,035,000. So we've been really very fiscally responsible. The problem that we have is the USDA does not allow nonprofit school food service accounts to have more than 3 months worth of operating expenses in their nonprofit food service coffers. So for us, that's roughly on any given year between $340,000 and $360,000. So we were put in a spend down plan way back in 2021-22. So I was a little skeptical about the amount of money that I was told I had, and I'm glad I was then, because we'd be in real trouble if I wasn't skeptical. So we had to put together a spend down plan, and we've had to do that now every year since the 2021-22 school year. And the state approved it with a realistic spend down plan of how to get us back down to 350,000. Last year, I was told by the state that, it'd gone on long enough and we needed to make a more significant amount of expenditures to bring us closer. So we did that. We bought some beautiful new walk-in freezers for the elementary schools, new salad bars, new ovens. We even paid for plumbing that really should have been covered by the district, but it fell in that gray area that we could fund it, and I knew the district was struggling. So we thought we had this money and, we'd be collaborative. Then all of a sudden, we find out that $300,000 of that really wasn't real money, but we'd already spent and had purchase orders. And in this year, that brought us down to a situation where, we're going to end the year probably still in the good, but just barely. So we're kind of looking for a little bit of help and a little bit of relief to keep us from a situation where you're not forced to have to cover any deficit. Right now, I do not believe we're going to end in a deficit. Our revenue for last month was $20,000 more than I had projected. And for this month, I expect it to be another $10,000 to $15,000 than I originally projected. But in the end, we're only going to end with a little bit between $20,000 and maybe $35,000 to the good. And that may not be sustainable for next year. If we have additional funds this year that the district could slide over to help fund, I'm very confident that we could then go on for 2 to 3, even 4 more years without having to ask for any relief. I apologize that we're in this position. I was spending, based on what the state and federal government was telling me. If we had known that $300,000 wasn't real, we would have adjusted what we had purchased, but we didn't want to lose any federal funding and didn't want to leave any money on the table. So we were caught between a rock and a hard place. and it was an unfortunate mistake. And I'm really glad that our business office caught it and the auditors caught it before it became devastating, because it could have been where we ended up in a deficit of $200,000 to $300,000 this year. And like I said, we won't end in a deficit. I can promise you that. That's all I got.
Thanks, Rhonda.
So to clarify, is the board being asked for a suggested amount of money?
So,
Uh,
so I would say that what I'm showing you right here is, let me scroll up just a little bit. This is kind of a quick and dirty sheet that the business office and Rhonda worked through to figure out where she was at. And they worked on this a few weeks ago. So, to her comment, I think that the numbers may be changing a little bit, but,
Yes.
so here coming in with, just 367 overspent, but she's got this fund balance here. So we find ourselves in a situation this year where we have this money that's unencumbered, right? And in next year's budget, which is already approved, we didn't plan to support nutritional services. Like Rhonda said, we are able to transfer money to nutritional services and it can live there for quite a while, unlike the money in the general fund, because it's an enterprise fund. So what we would like to do and what our auditors are comfortable and they're encouraging us to do is to transfer out of this to before the fiscal year ends, to transfer 350,000 from the general fund to child nutritional services. And that will support Rhonda and her team for the remainder of this year and all of next year. And then we will be able to look at next year when we're working on the budget, how we, what kind of supports that we need to offer. And again, like I said, it is incredibly common. It is uncommon to be in the situation that we've been in many years where the general fund did not offer any support to child nutrition services. It's very common for school districts to have to support child nutrition services. And it's to Rhonda's credit. And I was smiling while you were talking, Rhonda, because we are so lucky to have her, because not only did she steward us out of the deficit situation that we were in when she got here. I mean, who wants to walk into that, right? But she is such an amazing steward of the money and the staff, and she feels so bad that we are in this situation, like it's her personal checkbook. And I'm just grateful to have her, to be going through this with her. And you don't need to feel bad, Rhonda. You and your team work so hard. She explained to me in a meeting earlier, like she's changed all the menus around. Like, okay, we're only offering chicken nuggets because if we offer patties and tenders, like that's costing us, like she's doing all of the nitty gritty to make it be as cost effective as possible. That's why chocolate milk is back on the menu, guys, because it's helping us out of the hole.
The kids guided that.
Yeah, the kids brought it up and it helped us.
Oh, sorry,
Sure.
sorry, go ahead.
So what board discussion or action is needed?
So I don't want to push you into making any decisions this evening. I want to prep you that we would like to request that the board authorize us to, or is okay with us moving funds from the general fund into child nutrition funding. I'm happy to table that and have that discussion with you again at your next meeting, if you would rather have more discussion about that.
And I would be very happy to give you a complete report with charts and everything showing the history, so that you can make an informed decision. But I also need to let you know that the state of Vermont requires that if we go into a deficit, that the district cover whatever we are not able to, and pay off all the people that we owe. And we felt that right now we could possibly be in a situation where it would be easier for the board to fund with general fund money, as opposed to where we are in a deficit and you don't have a choice. And that's a horrible place for any of us to be in. So we're just kind of throwing that out there, food for thought, because we have open positions and have left, possibly up to $2 million on the table. replenishing the 300,000 that we thought we had when I did my budget and did my spending. I can assure you that those funds, we have a lot of people that are actually taking advantage of the buyout, and they will not be replaced. And we will not be making any bold moves or purchasing any equipment for at least a year, unless we absolutely have to ensure that we have stabilized and can continue on. So if we have the money this year, I would appreciate it if the board would help us out a little bit. And if we don't, then I will do my best to keep us above water next year. So it's just kind of like food for thought. We're throwing it out there. We don't want to shock you later.
So would the board be okay with adding an action item to the matrix where we discuss this?
Yes.
Does that work for you in terms of schedule?
Totally fine.
Okay, so let's move the discussion of this particular issue to May 6th, if that works for you.
If I can just make a request, I think it would be helpful, because I'm taking notes and thinking about everything. But just to have a little more clarity, conciseness in exactly what happened, that, where this potential deficit is coming from. I know it was kind of brought up in the beginning, and then as we're tracking along and there was work that was being done and things that were happening, but just to have that and what happened to this 300 that we thought we had and where did that go? And
Yeah,
I'm still not entirely clear on that.
Yeah, it was miscoded. It was coded, it's fixed assets. It's actual items that are of value in Rhonda's workhouse. That like it's ovens and it's equipment that she has that was calculated as cash.
Jean Marie, I know you're jumping on a plane at 2 a.m. or something, but can Rhonda and maybe an auditor give me something in writing that I could add to a board?
Sure.
Date this
For sure.
I don't know
Yeah.
if we can get it in this week or not, but it'd be great if we could.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if not, then next Friday's board update.
Thank you,
Would that
Rhonda.
be okay?
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All that you do for the kids. So at this point, do you want to go through the monitor report more, or
No,
is the board ready to monitor? Board's ready to monitor. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to monitor 2.4 financial planning and budgeting using the metric that the board has used before.
And so I did hear that, in terms of self-reporting compliance level, that you consider this to be the same as the last.
That's correct.
So if anybody needs the last, I hold that up, or we just vote independently. I have no preference. I'm not making a recommendation. I'm just letting you know I have that information.
The motion fails, but I would entertain a motion to monitor 2.4 financial planning and budgeting using the metric that we have in the board materials.
I'll make the motion.
Then motions,
I'll second.
Laura seconds, and I think what you were saying, Michelle, is that you have the numbers from the last time we did this in case people want to be refreshed on what they voted then.
I apologize for failing.
Oh, God, no, totally
I
fine to kill motion.
didn't,
No
I
problem.
don't understand how I pulled it.
It's okay. It's okay.
Let's just move forward. I don't need to understand. Yeah,
It's late.
I'll take the hit. Let's just go.
So would any board members like to hear how they voted last time? As Michelle, so as they offered.
I
would appreciate it. Did you write Brenda?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
can you share it?
Oh.
So we can see?
yeah,
That might be helpful.
Share. On document. Yeah, so we were very consistent, so it's not hard to follow. And this is from March, which is the last one, correct? I pulled up the right one. Joe, do you know? We last did this in March.
Was it March? Or was it?
Yeah, no, it was March, that's right, yep.
We have one in February too.
Well, she does two.
I have two.
This is the first.
This is the first one.
I think this is the February one.
I don't think I've heard this before. I think this is.
Oh,
It's gotta be,
okay.
because Alyssa's on here and
Yeah.
she was.
I think.
Which one is it the same as February or March? February, then let me pull up for February, let me stop sharing, because I don't know. what's
Sorry.
there. No, that's okay. My bad, I should have asked to begin with.
And to clarify, we are in the discussion section of the motion, so the public is welcome to come. And also, I think once we take action, that's when we'll actually start the process of voting. So
We're discussing.
we're discussing now.
I can't see this one, I'll just see if I have the right ones, it looks just right, I don't want to close them. I opened up the same ones.
Do you want to just tell us, Michelle? Or,
No, I can do it right this time because it's a 50-50 shot.
Oh, okay.
And it's the same. So this one is the, no.
it's still the same, isn't it?
It's 415?
Council listen.
I could be.
Alyssa's on both. So maybe it was March.
I'm gonna close.
Because were you not here for March?
I was here. No, Alyssa.
That's
I was.
right.
Well, because they're
Looking at
I didn't vote.
Huh?
Oh.
I wasn't. I wasn't here.
You weren't here in March
Okay,
or February.
now the only one
I have
open is the
number.
one from February.
Okay, Jim.
I have no idea, James. I guess I wasn't here. Oh, I know what it was. It was parent teacher conferences at Essex.
Yeah.
That's right. It was March 17th. I was not here.
There we go.
There
we
we
go.
So
go.
it was.
There it is.
Boston.
Yeah, there we go. You were right. It was- Yes, I was one was.
You're free to leave this on the screen while we vote. Is there any other further discussion before we, so all those in favor? And all we're doing is saying that we're gonna monitor it using this rubric. All those in favor, say aye. Okay, the motion passes. We're now gonna monitor the policy 2.4. So the first section is about the monitor report. And this is about whether the interpretation of the policy and the just the report is good. So I will start with Moment.
Yeah, yes.
Number
Or there's no one to four.
Number 0 to 4.
0 to 4, 3.
Okay,
3.
Emily.
3.
Okay. We're here. Jen.
3.
I'm a 3. Laura.
3.
3. Alyssa. Michelle.
Right.
Dan.
3.
Okay. The next section is about district outcomes, which is to say, like, is the work of the financial planning and budgeting arriving at the actual goals that have been set. So Moment, we'll start with you.
3.
Ally. Emily.
3.
Jen.
I'd say 2.
I'm a 2. Laura.
3.
Alyssa. Michelle.
2.
Dan.
2.
Okay, and then to the extent that we saw a compliance plan. I think that basically means, like, is there an indication of how things are gonna be made better? Was that acceptable?
Yes.
So, Moment.
Yes.
Ally.
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Alyssa.
Yeah.
Michelle. Dan, yes, okay, so unanimous support for the compliance plan. Great, okay. The next item on the agenda is monitor report 2.4. So would you stop sharing and I will start. 2.9.
2.9.
2.9, I'm sorry, let me restate that. We're now gonna do monitor report 2.9, communication and support to the board. So let me bring that up. So. Monitoring report 2.9. See it there? It is a direct monitoring report, which means that under policy governance, it's one of the ones where board members are expected to go and seek out our own information as opposed to having it presented to us by the superintendent. So I guess I'll start by asking the superintendent if you have any comments on this monitor report as presented.
I read through it and I thought too, it was accurate. I received feedback.
Okay, so for this monitor report, Michelle and I independently reviewed a bunch of evidence around the superintendent's communication and support to the board. Roughly speaking, what that means, there's actually 10 executive limitations. Starting with superintendent shall not cause or allow the board to be uninformed or unsupported in its work. And these are things like neglect to submit monitoring data, fail to report in a timely manner actual or anticipated noncompliance with any policy of the board, neglect to submit unbiased decision information. Well, you've all read this, so I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but that's the executive limitations that are being monitored here. The interpretation of that is pretty extensive, as you've all read. And the reporting that we did, Michelle and I, was this findings column. And so in each case, there's some suggested evidence for direct inspection, such as how does the superintendent keep us informed? Well, board packets, the things that we received before a board meeting, agendas, minutes, written superintendent updates that we get every Friday, and all that. And so Michelle did a large amount of work analyzing each one of these evidentiary things. There were a couple things that we're not doing right now, such as, for example, this concept of decision memos. There's this concept that we might, for an important district decision, have a written memo that says why we took the decision. I don't think we have been doing that. Anyway, long story short, the recommendation from Michelle and I in terms of the direct evidence that we saw was that the superintendent is in compliance with keeping us informed with 2.9 communication support to the board. There are a few strengths listed here. Consistently open about risks, problems, and mistakes. Fully answered questions and encouraged more. Brought items to board's attention in a timely manner, and provided high quality monitoring reports on schedule and with appropriate levels of detail. Gaps and risks observed is again this issue of decision memos, and of particular interest to the board in the monitoring reports is being able to see the data over time, because often we'll see a number and it doesn't make sense out of context with other numbers. And so the easiest way to deal with that is longitudinal, data over time. And also relating to external or national trends, benchmarks. Recommending corrective actions. Help us decide if we want to continue or if we want to use decision memos. I might add, even as we're speaking now, I think also just like, recommitting to longitudinal analysis in all the monitoring reports, always having the comparison, to previous time periods. And then that's it. So are there any board discussion of the policy 2.9, its interpretation, the evidence we've reviewed, or our recommended findings?
I guess I just have one question for the board. So since this is a direct report, do we want to go with compliant, not compliant as the benchmark, right? Or the thing that we decide, or do we want to try to apply the rubric that we apply to other reports? Where we say, how's the report? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. How are the outcomes? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So basically the question is, do we just say yes, no, or do we go through and do this?
I mean, I like it from a consistency standpoint.
I think would be helpful. I was gonna ask, do we use the rubric for like every other big one?
We have used it for every other.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense to me also. I mean, it's a little awkward for me to, like, we wrote the report, so to rate the report, but it's great to hear from everybody, right? Like, I'm not suggesting that the board can't be exact, that's what I'm thinking. It's like, should
I think it's
Should
fine
somebody
if
else?
we don't vote on the monitor.
just you and
report.
I, yeah, don't vote and everybody's just, okay, yeah, sounds good.
Joe, are there any comments you have about the discussion that we've had about this?
No, again, I appreciate the feedback and it's very helpful. I'm always open to more feedback and I try to be as communicative as I can. I don't always remember to say things, but I do my best to.
I would actually like to go with John's to say I could put him with the students. To vote on the,
Say it again.
I'm not sure if breaking protocol is a problem or not, I'm suspecting it's not. Could we ask Joe to rate the report?
Yeah.
Sure, you'll be in a non-voting.
Yeah,
Or a non-binding vote.
I have Ally Mo and Joe.
Feedback would be very helpful
Yep.
for sure.
Yeah, right, because you can, is this useful for you? And if not, what
I
can
don't
be
make
better?
it useful.
Because Michelle did, I mean, I also did, but Michelle did a lot of work. So it's, it's like we want to make the board's use of time efficient. So I would entertain a motion to monitor 2.9 communication and support to the board using the rubric provided in the board materials. Laura moves. Jen seconds. Any discussion? And this is a public forum, so,
Nothing wrong.
okay. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Now we'll monitor 2.9 using the rubric. So the first question is about the monitoring report and its adequacy. So Moment,
3.
Ally, Emily,
4.
Jen,
I would say 3.
I'm not voting. Laura,
4.
Joe,
4.
Alyssa, 3. Michelle, I'm not voting. Dan,
4.
Okay, the next section, this is actually about district outcomes, so this is evaluating the superintendent in terms of his communication and support to the board. So Moment,
3.
Ally, Emily,
3.
Jen,
3, and can I change my other one to a 4?
Jeez.
Jeez.
The answer is yeah.
Yes.
I'm totally into blow guard. Okay, before you move on, let me finish changing. Sorry.
Okay, I'm up.
Emily, you were, sorry, what was your? number?
Emily was 3. Jen was 3. Yep, I'm a 4. Laura,
4. We can vote on this.
Alyssa,
3.
Michelle,
4.
Jen.
Joe?
All right. You can't vote on that.
Okay.
And I don't think we should vote on compliance plan because there is not, and you can see that as a deficiency in this, but there is no compliance plan in here.
4.
And I think the thing is that sometimes we have compliance plans, even when the scores are high, in the sense of just like getting better, but that's just, we didn't even think about asking Joe to put anything in here, so I think we just.
No, it's really the,
So would the compliance plan be like continuing?
Continuing.
Continuing this, considering the.
Yeah.
And then looking at these
Yeah.
recommendations.
recommended correction.
Yeah.
Consider.
Yeah.
So Joe, would you, okay, so, let's go around compliance plan. Moment,
Yes.
Ally,
Yes.
Emily, yes,
Yes.
I'm a yes, Laura,
Yes.
Alyssa. Michelle. Dan,
Yes.
okay, so now, all right. The next item on the agenda is,
Let me just say thank you, Joe. I mean, I truly feel informed. And when we come and we have to make a decision, the information that you share with us feels sufficient and above sufficient to actually make that decision in a way where we're not just shooting that. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I totally agree. And I have a comment, and I don't know if now's the time to bring it up, but it does have to do with monitoring reports. But I was just looking at our board website. And we were tracking, like we have the scorecard, which I wouldn't necessarily call this a scorecard per se. It's not quite what I was thinking, but we do have the monitoring reports. And I'm just thinking it would be helpful to have these other ones included in there and updated to those
Yeah,
with
those-
those scores. Okay, just so that it's current, we can.
would you
see.
remind me of that during the work week?
Yes. Well,
Yeah, and I also just would say that we've already had some difficult issues to talk through where people have made mistakes, myself included, and I just think that your communication style is open and direct and honest and humble, and it's a example to me personally. So thank you for that. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is taking action on the employee severance plan. I believe Joe provided us with some documentation before the meeting, but maybe you want to remind us.
I did, and Katie Rose from the company is here with us, and she's Katie, you have the ability to.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Hello,
So if you can give the board a quick overview of, how many people signed up, what the projected savings is, and what your recommendation is.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody again, although I'm not there. I wish I was in Vermont. So I do have the post summary. Is that something I can share? Or okay, let me just give me one sec. Boop. Share. Okay, can you guys all see that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. I'm not going to take a lot of your time, but I'm very excited to share the results with all of you of the employee severance plan that was recently implemented in your district. Some of the things I want to, and I hopefully you all have a copy of this. It's good information. So if you all recall, we projected 18 certified professional staff to elect, and we got 17 to elect. Regarding the classified employees, we got 9 that elected. Originally, we projected 15 with that group. And in retrospect, we've learned a few things. Obviously, you guys you're our very first client in Vermont. And the way the classified group has their retirement, not through a state funded, or not state funded, a state pension. It's done a little bit differently, and I think that had to do with the projections. But even with getting 9 when we projected 15, and you see the numbers here in a minute, I think you'll be pleased. So of the 17 that elected, one professional staff, one's going to be exiting a year from now. And then for the classified employees, there are 2 that will be, and the remaining 16 will be exiting at the end of the school year of your certified staff. Of the classified staff, 2 will be remaining until December 31st, and 7 will be exiting at the end of the school fiscal year. So what this chart, and I'm not sure how well you all can see it, but I'm fairly certain that you guys have this in your packet, but we just wanted to kind of break down by building, by group, to kind of give you an idea, where the positions are coming out of building wise. And that's what this graph does here. Very quickly.
Sorry to interrupt, but just a reminder that the ones that have delayed exits, that can change when we post the positions that we're going to fill. If we cannot find suitable replacements, we still have the ability to hold those folks back for a year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So with 26 electing and getting some guidance from your administrators, in this model, we're going to give an estimated 23.5 replacements of the 26. It's estimated that the district will save 6.2 million over 8 years. So that's cumulatively. To kind of show you by each of the groups here. These numbers that you see here are net of all plan and replacement costs. So as you look at these numbers, you can kind of think to yourself, okay, this is the bottom line saving. This is after we've replaced. This is after we paid the plan costs to pay out the benefits. So with 17 certified professional staff electing and 14.5 replaced, you can see that the district will save approximately 1 million in that first year. And then going out cumulatively, approximately 6 million. Now, regarding the classified, at this point, I was directed to show full replacement in this group. Keep in mind that this model that you're looking at is kind of a work in session because as the district actually replaces, I will work with your administrators on continually updating this. So with 9 classified electing and replacing all 9, you can see in that first year it's about 26,000 or cumulatively over the 8 about 156. So when you add in the savings from the professional staff and the classified staff, that first year the district is saving about 1,073,227 or cumulatively about 6.2 out over the 8 years. I have a couple more pages here that have a little more detail on each of the groups. And I don't know how much you want me to go through this, Dr. Clark, as far as the numbers, but just so you all know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I know that we're running late. I think if there's questions, if whatever the board wants to ask with questions, I think is right now. They've been given the report and they've been able to review it.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any board questions?
Yeah, it feels like I know, I wrote some questions on, I'm gonna see if there's some. So I think one question is, will any of the retirements be for possibly attrited positions? Is that known now, or is that something that you can't know now?
What does attrited mean? And I'll tell you the answer.
But when you say that it's better to reduce staff by attrition,
Oh, yeah,
that's what I mean, yeah.
Yes, so that's where the 2.5 are coming from. So, and I can tell you exactly what those positions are. The Kristen Romick position will not be replaced. The Joe McDonald PE teacher at the high school will not be replaced. And there's a half of an English teaching position that will not be replaced. So that's where your savings are.
Right, and then my other question is, what, I know we talked a lot about pros, or you all talked a lot about pros and cons, and now we kind of have the numbers in front of us, so we have a more realistic view. Are there any lingering things like hiring pools, or, you know, like, are we at risk? I think you probably control that through the right to defer.
Yeah, so we're gonna find that out because we started this a little late in the process, so the intention is for us to, like, as soon as tomorrow, start posting all of these open jobs to see if we can get people to fill them. So, I mean, there are certainly some jobs that are harder to fill than others, like your maths and your sciences and your special education. So we'll see where we go from there. The 3 that I've allowed, one is a music band teacher, because that's incredibly hard. I know already it's going to be tough to replace. And then the 2 ladies who really run the entire district, Meg and Delina, who do incredible work. We're going to let them go in December, with the goal being to hire their replacements now so they can work together for, you know, the rest of the year. So we get a good transition there. They have so much, yeah, they're incredible. So yeah, that was again, say no brainer. That was a no brainer for me.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the employee severance plan
What you're actually approving is the resignation of those 26 folks that were listed on that document that I shared with you.
Okay, so motion fails. I would entertain a motion to accept the resignation of the employees who are being included in the employee severance plan. Michelle moves.
A second.
Laura seconds. Is there any discussion? And this is a public comment period.
Rhonda. Oh, and then we have the audience.
Yep.
Lauren, you wanna come up and just, yeah, sorry, introduce. Thank you.
I'm Lauren Bartlett, teach at the middle school. Just curious about the 16 exiting this year and the one that's been approved already to exit next year. I don't know if that's the right wording or.
Yeah, that's the band teacher. She splits 2 buildings. Music is incredibly difficult to fill, and I am confident that to get somebody who is able to take on both programs at any kind of level, we're going to need to do a more extensive search.
I would like to be one of those people.
I know you are. That's why I said science, so we'll
Yes,
see.
yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Lauren.
Any other public comment?
Rhonda's on.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Rhonda Kettner. Can I ask you to scroll back to the initial page where you broke down,
Right here, yeah.
yeah. So you have nutritional services. You only have one person, and I have 4 people that filled out the stuff, and 3 of them that handed it to the people that came and helped everybody.
Yeah, I understand. It could be, so those locations we get from the district, and sometimes they
might be in a school.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
They're
All right.
accounted for here somewhere, but yeah, that's just how it
Okay.
came in. We only had one person in nutritional services. I mean, I know you have more, but that we actually had a label for their building. So the others are probably affiliated with their buildings.
Okay, and
Yeah,
then the
good
other
question.
question that I have, because it was really unclear in the whole process, is I do have some key staff that took advantage of the buyout, but there was no guidance on how to request whether or not we could keep them longer. I mean, you've talked about staff that's not going to leave until, December, people that aren't going to leave till the end of next school year. I have my assistant director who did take advantage of the buyout, and I could really use some help, for at least a couple of months for her to help train somebody to do what she does. But I was very unclear on how to do that. So how does one go about that?
Well, first thing we do is we post the positions and we see how people that apply and what their qualifications are. And if we come to a determination that we need to extend somebody, we make that decision at that time.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. You all have a great evening. Appreciate your time.
You too, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is consent agenda and planning. So we're gonna group these into well, we'll just does anybody have any objections to the March 31st minutes?
No.
Right. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Does anybody have any objections to the accounts payables? Right, hearing none, they're approved. Does anybody have any objections to the payroll warrant? All right, the next item we'll take an action on. I would entertain a motion to approve the AP voucher check to Howard Center in the amount of $77,031 with 65 cents. Laura moves,
Second.
Emily seconds. Any discussion?
We'll see.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next item is a bid for a minivan for the transportation department. Did you want to say anything about that, Jean Marie? No, it's fine.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to.
Only if you wanted to.
I saw the look at your face, you can stay right there.
So just to remind, this is a recommendation from the school district to buy a 2026 Honda Odyssey from 802 Honda for $42,597. I would entertain a motion to approve the bid for the minivan for the transportation department. Laura moves,
A second.
Emily seconds. Any discussion? All those in,
I was just gonna say I'm a Honda girl, so good choice.
all those in favor, say aye. Aye, motion passes. Any objections to the hires? Hires are approved. Any objections to the resignations or retirements? They're approved. Now we're on to agenda planning for May 6th. So the May 6th agenda is, first of all, there will be thank you very much. First of all, there is a community forum on ends policy. It's our second ends policy. Definitely need all out effort to get people here, because it is hard. We have a discussion item on 2 different policies. Superintendent, are these required policies? I'm guessing F5 wellness, first reading, F20 student use of cell phones.
Yes,
first
those are
reading.
both required.
So these are probably model policies for the BSBA that we're reading.
The cell phone policy is a model. The wellness policy was a huge undertaking by a large committee here, including Rhonda, including Sarah Pineda. That is based on model policy, but is a little more inclusive.
Okay, so those are both first readings. Now, an action item that I'm gonna suggest for the May 6th agenda is I would like to discuss budget for radio ads for the ends policy update. The superintendent report, we currently do not have a topic for that.
I'm not going to be here on that May 6th date. Just a reminder, I'll be down at Folly Beach and Suzanne Grunland will be here in my stead. So I can ask her to do a superintendent report if you'd like.
Okay, so if any board members have any ideas for a superintendent report, let's send this to Joe, and if Joe's okay with it, you can send us.
It's Suzanne.
Great.
And so far, that is it on the agenda.
Dan, bring a couple middle school kids here because it's a community forum. That's awesome.
I like that idea.
I do too.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's a good
As
idea.
many issues.
We talk about the phone policies or the the ends policy, right?
Forums for,
So will you take a note of that? Okay,
No.
Also, you wanted to put the legislative policy committee.
all right,
she's in the school.
Yeah.
And also, did we ever have in the parking lot, what are we doing with the school board website?
We were going to get a small committee together that would meet with me monthly to take 2 or 3 items that you wanted updated each month, and I would update it.
I need to do a committee?
Well, either you or 1 or 2 people who.
you should, I think that we agreed that we don't need a chart.
Here, so we
No.
like, we agreed to.
I asked if we could do it, take it one bite at a time. So every month, if there's 2 or 3 things that you say, hey, make that better, I can do that.
So you're allowed to go
Okay,
directly to Joe on that.
okay. Does anybody want to participate?
Well, we can't charge any, can't.
Oh,
discuss
yeah.
it
I
now.
like the idea of having just one person looking with Joe and it's
Oh,
tactical, it's good.
Yeah.
You're, so if you have great ideas and then come, you know, if there are things you need to run by the board, bring it to the board.
But if I had like an idea, I could email.
Yeah.
Janet.
Well, this is for.
But we're talking, we're not talking about the entire website, we're talking
No,
about.
right,
the
right,
board's Website.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the
it's
board's
only the
website.
board. Oh, yeah, not in, it's only the board. And we've started, I mean, like, I've gone
Give me
through
some
already.
ideas. Done nothing yet. I was
No,
waiting
that's
for the
okay.
official direct.
We need headshots from everybody. Ally's the only one who's on there.
Okay,
Okay,
well, that's fine. Okay, now I know what I have to
Oh,
do.
yeah?
Yes,
Let's just be
Jean
a
Marie,
moment.
wanted to add to the agenda?
Child nutrition,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
funding. And I have a slate of RFPs that'll be due, and also do a bunch of bid awards for you at that. Which I already kind of forward, wanted to, Seamus knows this already, but you folks all approved, the bid for the front loader at the last time we were here. Well, man, let me just tell you, trying to buy things these days, it's like a hot mess out there because of things outside of our control. Low bidder forgot the snow plow, next bidder wouldn't hold to his price. So we have reposted that, so I'll be back again with the,
So you can just add those indirectly, great. Any other,
So what happened with the second one? Jack up the price?
Yeah. and so I went back to him and said, the bid documents say you have to hold your quote for 60 days. And he said.
so I think one other thing we might wanna have for this is, the first. Discussion of superintendent evaluation. But that will probably happen in. Well, I'll check with the lawyer and see if we have to do that in executive session. Probably we do, but I'll put that as an action item for myself.
I had one other thing I asked Joe this earlier. At the last meeting, we were bouncing around the hire a consultant to help you with the ends policy. We need a PO for that? Did
We
we
have
settle
not.
on that?
We will have a PO by Friday.
Did you settle on somebody yet? Or, okay, so I just wanna make sure.
But that could be an FY 27 PO, right?
I don't know what your plans are.
I said that could be an FY 27 PO, because.
Will that start
we're going
after
into
July
next
1?
Year.
I don't know. I will send it to you as soon as in fact, I think I sent it to you during the meeting.
You sent me the number and I said, I need a vendor.
Oh, we don't know it yet. We haven't picked.
Oh.
It's a.
So how was the final decision?
It was delegated to the committee by the board last meeting.
We delegated that you guys could.
Yeah, we did, we voted to, that they.
I didn't know.
Decision,
It just,
yeah.
I don't remember delegating the final. I thought we delegated you guys. We discussed it. We would all make the decision on.
If you have concerns about it, definitely bring it up, but my current understanding is that it was delegated to us. It shouldn't be more than like $900,000.
That's not even.
Joke. Joke.
Yeah, but there's no opportunity for any other board member right now. Because if we're putting a purchase order in by Friday, there's no opportunity.
But we did.
I just want you to, like, if anybody has a problem with
No,
us deciding on it, let me know
I don't
and
think
we
you're
will of
lying.
course listen.
And just for clarity, remember, we can put a purchase order in
And change.
and change the vendor. We just wanna put a hold on that money for however much that is. We need to attach it to a vendor. We can change it later. So you can change your
Consulting, Acme Consulting. There you are.
We might put it in, I know that like the VSBA was one, and they're already a vendor in our system, so we could just put it, PO in with the VSBA as the vendor for the approximate amount that you think it's gonna be, and then we can adjust it once you settle on it better. Okay? Thank you.
The note to myself was that we would. So whether we need, I'm just gonna put it directly onto the actual. Agenda is discussion item. Superintendent evaluation. Do we do this in executive session? Pass back to Joe.
So when.
Okay, great. So
James, when the three of you decide, and you. It's gonna be done by Friday, you said,
yes,
you send it to us with who and.
Yep.
The reasons why and the price and everything.
yeah,
Okay, we don't need to know who by Friday. We just need to know what the.
No, the board.
Yeah.
Board.
yes.
Right.
Yeah, if we could.
Definitely, as soon as we can, we've been many phone calls. about it.
Okay.
All right,
Where's ready?
I'm so ready.
so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Laura moves,
Second.
Emily seconds, any discussion? And this is an action item, so we'll be taking public comment.
Devastating. April Fools.
All those in favor?
Hi.
All right, the meeting is adjourned.